Nasi, I believe.
Oh yeah. Well, on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
note, let's bring in Zabir. Is Zabir on stage already? No. I'll invite him in. So, and we got a few more people jumping in. Jay from Grab, awesome. And let me ping Zabir because he lives in Taiwan, and we're overdue for an update on what's going on in the South China Sea around Taiwan, especially. But go ahead and explain who Teddy is and all that.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. So
Okay,
Teddy
weekday.
apparently is the Secretary of Foreign Affairs.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't have much of a context on this. I just came across it on
What is
Twitter
it?
and
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead and read it here.
the tweet.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and I'm not paraphrasing here, guys. China, my friend, how politely can I put it? Let me see. Oh, get the fuck out. What are you doing to our friendship? You, not us. We're trying. You. You're like an ugly oaf forcing your attentions on a handsome guy who wants to be a friend, not to father a Chinese province. And then there's another tweet below that because he didn't have enough characters. He doesn't have a uterus. If he tried to give birth to a Chinese province, it would be a ball of crap at best and the end of the regime. Why is
Ouch.
it so hard to understand about Duterte's UN declaration that the arbitral award made all maritime features Philippines, no one else's?
Yeah. So this is he's, as you said, his Twitter bio says he's a journalist and a presidential speechwriter, newspaper and political magazine publisher, TV anchor and commenter, lawyer, lawmaker, diplomat, and cabinet secretary in the Philippines, and has some very strong words for China's actions in the South China Sea. Vietnam similarly is not so happy with what's happening, and that's what Zubair has been keeping us updated on what's going on there. Justin, you have any thoughts on what's going on in the South China Sea?
I just got in here, so can you just give me a quick
Yeah.
recap? Is this the
Here's
sorry?
the quick recap. The a one of the Philippines journalist slash TV anchor slash lawmaker slash presidential speechwriter slash diplomat cabinet secretary just did a really choice tweet where he says, "China, my friend, how politely can I put it? Get the fuck out." All caps. What are you doing to our friendship? He says,
Well, that's
you're like an ugly oaf forcing your attentions on a handsome guy who wants to be a friend."
I,
Yeah.
I want Justin to read the headline again.
Yes.
Just kidding.
that's the most bizarre diplomatic tweet
Yes.
I think I've heard.
Justin, you can PTR. I made it my TP.
Okay. But
I'm not reading that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But the Philippines has a long tradition of interesting political comments.
I,
Oh,
I was gonna say it's so it's in line with how erratic the government is,
Yeah.
and while I'm by no means an expert on uh, the internal workings or diplomacy of the Philippines, what I've heard is that
Oh,
this
hold
from
on, hang on. Diva just raised her hand. Hold on. Here we go. Diva, what's going on?
Hi, I just heard you mention the Philippines, so I said,
Yes.
okay. And I will guess the name of this person
Yes.
because he uses the FU word
Yeah.
in his tweets very profusely.
Okay.
Is it Teddy Boy Locsin or somebody
Yes.
else?
Yes, it was Teddy.
Is known for that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he's known to be flip flopping in the sense that when he first got on the this new administration, he was all hunky dory about it, and then now he is like raising his voice against China. But he is very right because prior to this administration, or even now I can't look up the name of the agreement, but it is UNCLOS, I believe. So basically, the Philippines has that right of that 9 mile. Um, well, it's a yeah.
It's
If anybody knows the word for it,
it's
please
the
just jump in.
international water. What
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So basically it's not ours, but that's
Yeah.
exclusive economic
Yes.
zone as
Economic zone. Yeah.
most Right, as most countries would, and they keep on building military on the,
Right.
right. I mean, like
Well, they're building little
island,
they're building little sand islands. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Exactly, and militarize them.
Right. And then
So
once they build them, they turn it into a small military base or whatever.
exactly, and then people who are just there. I mean, these are
But
fishermen.
by the way, there's
Yeah.
more than that, because
Uh huh.
according to the rules, is once there is an island, now that island has a economic barrier around it that goes miles into the water. So now
Exactly.
you have overlapping, conflicting. It diminishes your existing area essentially. Yeah. And of course
Yes.
puts militarized presence in your own backyard. Yeah.
And they chase small fishermen. What the hell? I mean, this is just fishermen. They're just doing their livelihood. Why would
And
you
to be
want to chase
fair,
them?
it's far closer to the Philippines than to China.
Exactly,
Like
exactly, and among other
it's
and the
ac-
other countries happened that I
it's
mean that
actually
happened to other
it's
countries
actually
too.
quite far from China. Just to be fair, like it's much closer to the Philippines than China, so it's quite an aggressive move. Yeah. Um,
That's what I have to say to that. Maybe Fernina has something to say.
I can,
I realize.
ay nako, Ate Diwa, I can just
Yes.
tell you, I don't, I still need to do some more digging into Philippine uh, politics, modern
yeah.
politics. But my grandfather was the presidential speechwriter for the Marcos family, and if he saw this tweet, he would turn in his grave
Yeah.
because this is just what I'm just trying to understand what outcome he expects from that tweet.
Well, I think that this just plays into the larger issue facing the Philippines in that, at least this is what I've heard from analysts on the region, that they're kind of all bluster, no, they're all hat, no spurs. So basically, they'll make these tweets, they'll act really tough, and then because they don't really have a coherent strategy, because of their leadership and lack thereof in a lot of cases, they will end up relenting. So what I've seen or heard at least, and not being an expert, just passing along like a game of telephone, what I've heard from experts in the region is that they don't really expect much to come of this, and they expect China to essentially get their own way.
Mm.
And
Can
also
I just
because
say, I absolutely agree with Justin because I think late last year, Malaysia had the same problem with China, with just, I think China is a bit of a bully. And the reality is, a lot of Southeast Asian countries are actually a little bit afraid to really, I would say this tweet is rather a bold move because normally under normal circumstances, I remember I think last year the prime minister of Malaysia, Mahathir, he had said something along the lines of, oh, we are not really strong enough to tell the Chinese what to do, so we should be very careful, we should try and be diplomatic. And he received a lot of backlash from the Malaysians because they were saying China does not have full rights over South China Sea. So why should we keep allowing them to act as though they're the owners of this space? Like the lady said, this is a regional zone for everybody to be able to trade. But the unfortunate thing is a lot of countries within this region are actually quite afraid to really just take a bold stand against China in this aspect.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's even the president himself, the Philippine president, kowtows to China. That's
So
something
There's
else.
we have a gentleman who just joined us on stage. Welcome, Vasuki. Looking at your bio, I imagine you might have some context here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, I've been listening in, and obviously, what the foreign secretary had to say is a diplomatic breach. If on one hand, on the other hand, China's own infractions in the South China Sea have been a major geopolitical breach. And I guess there are two ways of looking at this. I think for me, it signals that China's neighbors, particularly in ASEAN, so I would include the Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia, as countries who are really worried about China's brazen attempt to really demarcate the South China Sea. They've used this infamous nine-dash line as belonging to China. In reality, it's going to be very hard to change the facts on the ground. But the fact that China's neighbors are speaking up And this is by no means East Asian phenomenon. If you look at the India-China conflict, which exploded last year, India is similarly pushing back against China's rather grandiose claims that it owns a chunk of territory which is currently owned by India. So this is clearly the first. This is going to be a long unfolding geopolitical battle. But the fact that you've got President Biden in the White House is focused on the Indo-Pacific, and the fact that China's neighbors are now willing to speak up suggests to me that at least the ASEAN members are looking to the US to provide some level of insurance. So it is a fascinating development what took place today.
Because you bring up an interesting point, which is that it's not just the South China Sea countries, and it's also India in the south, and there's also tensions in the west, kind of. And if all of China neighbors, kind of on all fronts, kind of speak unilaterally, then it becomes more of a one-sided debate, I guess.
There's also a medical
Yeah, I mean,
angle.
if you look at it, yeah, very quickly, if you look at this from Beijing's perspective, and I think this is very consistent with President Xi Jinping's desire since he became president in 2012, that the days of China really keeping its head down are clearly over. And what you're seeing now is a very assertive China, makes no bones about its fact that it is a superpower in the making. And it wants to keep all of its neighbors in its place. And the fact that the neighbors are speaking up to me suggests that we are setting ourselves up for some kind of conflict in the future.
Well, that's a scary thought around Taiwan, and that's why I pinged Zubair. I don't know if he's joined us yet, not yet, but I just there in
Yeah,
America. There's a is Zubair here? No.
yeah, I was just going to chime in, but go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, one second, Maggie, and I'll pass it to you. There in America, there's a news outlet called 60 Minutes, which is like each Sunday evening when all Americans sit down on their couch Sunday night and watch this show called 60 Minutes. It's quite a historically prestigious American news outlet, very long form, very detailed. Very respectable generally, and the focus this time was on the semiconductor shortage, and they had the chairman of TSMC and the CEO of Intel, and they were talking about all of this. And the chairman from TSMC said, they talked about the China issue and the potential for China taking over Taiwan, and they really got into all this. So I think for the first time, a lot of the things we've been talking about here each day is now reaching, the broader American audience through this 60 Minutes program that just aired on Sunday.
China has the first mover advantage, and they're instigating their initial. So the chessboard is set from the beginning now, and they're moving the first pawn. So in traditional warfare, they made a move. They want to see the reaction of how the other players in the region make their moves, and all of this is a standard intelligence gathering. They're gonna see what surfaces, but it's purely intentional, and it's very early in the game.
Yeah, I think it's still they're in the testing phase to see how everybody reacts, and there's no reason to not push as far as you can when you're in the reaction testing phase, right?
And I just like to say, like, everybody, it sounds like people are thinking of maybe a hard military takeover of Taiwan. Well, first off, I highly doubt the U.S. would get involved if that were the case. I also don't necessarily see that being the case. For people that understand Taiwan, they realize that most all of their business elites are their finances are existentially tied to a relationship with China. And in addition to that, China's military influence in the region is growing. So it would more look like a slow, soft takeover. The question then becomes whether the internal and domestic feelings of nationalism in Taiwan would allow for that type of takeover through the implementation of laws through a police arm. And that's really the big question, because 2/3 of Taiwan now, the population now strongly believes in a Taiwan sovereignty. And that's just been increasing amongst the youth, especially since China's recent crackdowns on Hong Kong. So while it is a complex area and there is definitely no resolution in sight, I don't see the West really getting involved in any type of military conflict with China over Taiwan, because of just the immense economic power, the entanglement that the US and EU have in China, and honestly, how far away Taiwan is from us. Now, that begs the question: what would Japan do and other nations in the region? Specifically, not whether they'd necessarily get involved, but would they change Article 9 of their constitution and begin to arm up in a nuclear fashion for a mutually assured destruction deterrence? Now, that's really what I would think the big thing to watch is, but nothing's assured. It's just a really fascinating, complex situation there.
So
Maggie, go ahead and jump in.
yeah, sorry, Maggie, we forgot. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh gosh, no, this is great. I'm happy to chime in anytime. And thank you. I appreciated those other views. I was just going to say that this is, like, to me, and this betrays my generation, the Star Wars box chessboard, right? There's the South China Sea, there's Taiwan, there's Hong Kong, there's 5G, right? And bringing us kind of back to tech news in the world. And across all these different levels, China is engaging. And I would actually say that maybe they are sending out feelers on all of these, moving their pawns on every single level. But I think on some levels, they're moving more than pawns. And they are, then you've got Belt and Road Initiative. If you look at all these layers, some of them overlap. But this is about Chinese global domination, how we choose to look at that, both in select spheres and just overall.
I was wondering though, to Justin's point.
One sec, Tyler. Zubair's in the audience. He
Yeah,
just arrived.
I
If you want
just
to take.
invited Zubair up, and one of the points I was going to make to kind of counter Justin a little bit was that in this 60 Minutes interview with the chairman of TSMC, he says that his company, it works as what they call the Silicon Shield of Taiwan, because he says not just America, but he says all the major countries have such a strong interest in TSMC that they would protect Taiwan if need be, if China tried to take it.
So I do really quickly want to respond to that. And
Yeah.
that is a true consideration. And that is really nice thinking from them. And I love Taiwan. I went over there on I guess you could say, pseudo-diplomatic trip representing parts of U.S. Congress and meeting with their top generals and top ministers. What's happening, though, Tyler, as you're well aware, and we've discussed in this fantastic room of yours, is the U.S. is beginning to onshore all of that production, or they're beginning the long process. And that's no coincidence, right?
Correct.
In addition to Intel investing $20 billion in Arizona for new facilities, they just announced another $3.5 billion in New Mexico. I think that's as of today. And then in addition to that, that's without any government subsidies. So there's a push for 50 to 60 billion in government subsidies in Biden's next transportation plan, and then additionally another 100 billion potentially to research advanced manufacturing, which would help make all of this more possible. And again, we're not talking 2 to 4 years to bring this all back. We're talking maybe 20 years when China would probably begin to aggress. So I think it's all happening that there's going to be less and less and less U.S. and Western reliance on Taiwan.
Exactly
But
right.
But would the U.S. really allow that to happen in the South China Sea? That's a very strategic strait down there. So I do believe that U.S. is going. It has already stepped in. It's back in the Philippines doing military drills and stuff like that. Even though Duterte is not very happy with the U.S. and Duterte clearly sides with China, I don't think the U.S. will allow it because
Yes.
it's just too strategic a
Well,
place.
let's
I
just
agree.
Zubair's on stage
But
from Taiwan, and if we Zubair, I love your updates, and we would love to get the kind of the most current, up to the minute update of what's going on there in Taiwan. And I wonder if you saw this 60 Minutes interview with the chairman of TSMC and the CEO of Intel. And to your point, Justin, you're exactly right that they did very much touch on how the Intel is behind TSMC and how long it's going to take to catch up, and the billions of dollars they're investing in Arizona precisely for those reasons, and etc. So it no doubt there's now there's a race to try and reduce the kind of dependency on TSMC, of course. So Zubair, what if you could, what's going on over there?
I did not watch that,
Okay.
but maybe I should,
Well,
and catch up a little bit. But
yeah, just for context, what we're responding to is a tweet from somebody in the
Luxing.
Philippines. What's his title, by the way, Diva?
I believe he's a president. Well, he was at one point ambassador. I'm not sure if he's still ambassador.
Yeah.
But communications,
It's a
something like communications
diplomat.
director.
And presidential
Right.
speechwriter, etc. And he says he had some very strong words for China, like get the F out of the South China Sea, basically.
Oh, he's the Secretary for Foreign Affairs.
Okay.
Can I just say, somebody was saying earlier on how the US might intervene in this issue. There's an article that I'm reading here that says that in July of 2016, there was actual an independent arbitral tribunal that established that that ruled in favor of the Philippines on this issue, the same South China Sea issue, and Beijing actually called the ruling illegal, null, and void. And so they just continued to do what they wanted to do, even after the UN had tried to intervene.
But they were part of that. That's the thing. China was part of that agreement, and then they say it's illegal.
Oh, so check this out. Somebody
Yes.
just sent me a DM. UK to the United Kingdom to send largest carrier strike group since the Falklands War to the South China Sea. The British government has given details on a massive Royal Navy, Royal Air Force carrier strike group being sent to the Indo-Pacific region. The mission, described as a truly global deployment from the North Atlantic to the Indo-Pacific, provocatively includes sailing through the South China Sea. It could depart as early as May 18th.
Yeah, Tyler, and what you're going to see, by the way, that's a brand new ship. That's a brand new battleship. But what you're going to see is you're going to see the Five Eyes coming together and doing exercises in order to better understand how they want to coordinate in real time during their coordinated efforts. And they're going to use that area, that AO, as their place of testing.
Okay.
Last vestige of colonialism, actually. Like, the last stance of colonialism at this point. Because observing it from a distance, I've noticed that even Malaysia, they've been basically, like, the train deal that they did, they actually agreed to even a 14% increase in the Chinese cost of that train. So it's just a matter of, I think, bargaining. That's all these steps seem to be bargaining. Like Malaysia did it. Now, Philippines has a huge debt that was published. And most of their debt is also, external debt is also held by China. And Duarte apparently just announced that he actually went and got the Sinopharm COVID vaccine. So I'm wondering whether this is all basically playing games with China just to get the better agreement. This happened in Sri Lanka as well. They would say that they're going ahead with India relations basically to improve their terms of debt. This is Heyman in Toronto.
Read this article that you just sent, Taman, the national debt issue. You say this is about money and a better deal with China from the Philippines.
Yes. Yeah, and the Rappler also has a report of that too, the same thing. Because the 29%, I think, of Filipino debt is held by external parties, most of which is China.
Tyler,
on,
I'm sending you something that ties into this in regards with India.
Okay. Yeah.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, of course you can. Was it yesterday we were talking all about? We had Monica here, and who else was from Sri Lanka on stage?
Kiran.
Kieran and yourself, Heyman, being originally from Sri Lanka, and about China's role in Sri Lanka and all of the crazy.
And Dan Miller brought
Yeah,
up the
that
headline.
that was kind of mind blowing. I'm still recovering from that. The kind of shady stuff going on there, to put similar to what they're doing off the coast now of the Philippines in terms of putting in a presence there in Sri Lanka, so close to India, very strategically, because it's so close to a very strategic part of India, militarily speaking, economically speaking. So super interesting indeed. So you were saying, here we go. India to clear 45 investments from China. Go ahead with this one, Sikil.
Akhil, just read the
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
1 second. Oh, my internet's kind of slow, so it's still loading for me.
Yeah, it says India to clear 45 investments from China, likely to include Great Wall. India is set to clear 45, and this is from the Economic Times / India Times. India is set to clear 45 investment proposals from China, which are likely to include those from the Great Wall Motor and SAIC Group government and individual stresses told Reuters as military tensions between the two countries ease at the disputed border. The proposals have been held up since last year after India tightened controls on Chinese investment in the country in retaliation against alleged Chinese troop incursions in the western Himalaya region. China blamed Indian troops for the standoff. About 150 investment proposals from China worth more than $2 billion were stuck in the pipeline. Companies from Japan and the U.S. routing investment through Hong Kong were also caught in the crossfire as an interministerial panel led by the Home Ministry increased scrutiny of such proposals.
This is February news, by the way. This is not new, so
Yeah,
it's been a while.
yeah. But I mean,
Jal, if I,
go ahead.
I want to jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for putting together this room. Very informative. This is my second time joining you all. Great. My name is Samar Sakuri. I'm from Virginia, USA, and originally from Iraq. And I just wanted to add my experience
Go ahead.
into how China operated in the Middle East and specifically Iraq. And my 10 cents is that the Chinese foreign policy, especially in Iraq, they've done their homework. They do their homework. They're very smart about and very strategic about their movements. Even one example is the Belt and Road Initiative. They didn't announce it as literal translation to Arabic. They didn't say Belt and Road. They said the Silk Road, which has a significant historical meaning to the region. And the people, they've done their homework. I'm trying to say. So listening to you all, and when you say that China is probing and probing and probing and trying to, influence and have land grab, I think they're yeah, definitely that seems their intention. But I don't think with these bold moves that they're making, I think they're more than just probing. I think they have a strategy, and I think they're going. That's my take, and I want give again get seeing from my experience, seeing them operate in Iraq and how they operated there. Of course, Iraq is no comparison to any other countries because it has its own uniqueness and its own challenges, but there. I'm just saying, especially with Iran and the whole region and all that. And again, thank you for your room. And I just don't want to take a quick opportunity since I'm speaking. On a non-related subject, I'm doing a market analysis or market research on automated insurance. If anybody has any experience on that matter, please DM me. And thank you very much. My name is Samar Seguri. I'm
One
done speaking.
That
Bitcoin.
one Bitcoin to the fund, Samir. Thank you. We appreciate your
Snuck that in.
your donation and your contribution. It will go to a very good cause. But thank you for your international perspective on that, Samir, from Iraq. It's interesting to hear.
No, but he made a good point,
Yeah,
so we can maybe let him off the
it
Bitcoin,
was a
right?
win. Yeah, he did it the right way. So
Give him a discount.
yeah, you get the daily discount. There's a whole lot of other news to get into, actually. Slightly on the topic of China, I guess, is there's a person by the name of Kuo who has become known as the Wayne Gretzky of Apple leaks, who really just the Michael Jordan of Apple leaks, just consistently and anything that happens in Shenzhen. Certainly, Kuo has very dear relatives that work at the Apple factories there in Shenzhen, because there's a new leak that says Apple is planning to launch a foldable iPhone in 2023, and says it will ship 15 to 20 million foldable iPhones in 2023. So that's something to look forward to on the Apple 14s.
What do you think, Michael?
Yeah,
Michael, you up for it?
foldable iPhone, Michael.
Michael,
This has
I
been
want it. I actually do want it.
this has been in the it's been being bounced around for the past year. I'm not. I know when they do it, it'll be done right. And my big problem with folding or not iPhones, but folding phones in general right now, all the issues that they still haven't figured out the electronics in the middle. Once you actually get it in the real world and all the folding and all the just the technology is there, but not quite yet. And I feel like the reason Apple's late to the game often, and people I feel like they don't realize this. So like Apple's always stealing ideas. They don't steal ideas. They just refine them until they can get them to that point of it works like magic.
Yeah.
And I think that when they finally do this, it's going to be because the technology they've perfected it, and it's going to be like super solid.
Let's do a little poll, shall we? I want to know if people are going to buy a folding iPhone. But
if it looks like a communicator from Star Trek, just sticking with my generation, I totally will buy it. I used to have the Uhura dress, and I'm so psyched, especially if it comes with one of those bulky things that you stick in your head like Frankenstein in order to talk.
Well,
Maggie, I am loving all of your pop culture references today.
If it has a stun setting, then I'll pay double whatever they're asking for it. Yeah.
Will it make
awesome.
that chirp?
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Will it make the chirp when you flip it open? That's the big question.
Yeah. Chirp, chirp. Oh man,
Maggie's on point today. I agree with Michael.
Yeah,
she's on point.
She really is.
There's speaking of Apple as well. Apple iOS 14.5 has the big privacy updates, and Facebook and Instagram is sending out notices now in their iOS apps telling their users that tracking helps keep their apps free of charge. So both, I have a PTR that I can send to our tech newsers room. If somebody can put this image in, here we go. I'll put this in here. If somebody could PTR this, so you can see a photo now where both Facebook and Instagram, now when users open the app, it'll say you are now on iOS 14.5. This version of iOS requires us to ask for permission to track some data from this device to improve your ads. We use this information about your activity received from other apps and websites to show you ads that are more personalized, help keep Facebook and Instagram free of charge. Implying that if you don't do this, they might have to come out with a paid version. So, yeah. Any thoughts on the strong wording of this? Help.
Send me the picture. I'll PTR.
Yes, Cheryl just PTR'd. Yeah. So if you click on Cheryl's profile, you'll see these new pop-ups that are coming to help keep Facebook and Instagram free of charge. And then somebody tweeted out, so it begins, Facebook and Instagram explore additional scare tactics to combat Apple's privacy changes. Help keep Facebook free of charge. That's kind of comical in a way. So
I got so many DMs and even on iMessage, so many people hit me up when they first updated, and they were like, if Facebook really thinks people are going to pay for this bullshit, like they I don't think they realize that people aren't here for that, really.
Yeah,
I'm going back to MySpace.
Yeah, even Jean Leger, who spends a lot of time here in Clubhouse, the former AT&T CEO, says, "Wait, I don't want to have to pay for Facebook and Instagram." So there's another article on Facebook from CNN, this is a big story being covered by Engadget, Washington Post, Politico, Forbes, the New York Post, Bloomberg, USA Today, the AP, CBS, etc. The Facebook Oversight Board says it will announce its decision on the banning of Trump 9 a.m. Eastern Time Wednesday after receiving more than 9,000 responses. The Facebook Oversight Board will announce its long-anticipated decision on the fate of former President Trump's Facebook account at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. It announced just earlier today, or just a few hours ago, I should say. So that brings us to our poll for today. Let me read some of the choice quotes. Here's one from Mark Zuckerberg himself. We believe that the risks of allowing the president to continue to use our service during this period are simply too great. He wrote, at that. Oh, hold on here. So let's do a quick poll of if you were Facebook, might you allow President Trump back on Facebook if you were Mark Zuckerberg? Is this a decent poll? Is this the right poll we want to ask?
I think it's a fair poll.
Let's see. And by the way, these are anonymous polls. We don't record who. We do record the number
Well,
of hands that people raise, but we don't.
Yeah, that's all we look at.
That's
That's
all
all we
we
look
look
at.
at is
Yeah.
number of hand
to, to,
raises. I assure you, we don't record who's raising their hands for which side. So you can, I assure you, full anonymous polling in this. But we love to get a pulse check on, and we understand that this is quite a global audience.
Tyler, so
yes,
for this poll, do you want to ask what their business acumen would be, or should Trump be unbanned? Because those are two different questions, right?
unpack that if you would,
Totally
Justin.
agree.
So basically, if you're asking if you're Mark Zuckerberg, would you unban Trump? The way that I perceive that is, what would be politically best for the business moving forward? And then the other question would be, should Trump be unbanned? And that is more of a merit based on the policies, on the speech he's used, on just a hard whether or not he should be unbanned, and not necessarily the implications on the business of unbanning him. I would have two different answers there.
I would focus on the free speech piece, but the business piece is also, I guess, relevant.
So it's from a business perspective, or from a legal perspective, or a business perspective. Is that the difference?
That's what I was thinking. Like somebody's take on the banning of him based on the policies or free speech or whatever that value is, versus the benefit to unbanning him or keeping him banned for Facebook on their bottom line, on their business, on the policies of U.S. Congress. So I think at least I see it as two different, and I would have two different answers.
So, but let me ask you this, because this is where it gets really interesting, because we've been noticing lately, and I think you've been in some of these conversations, where India is cracking down on things that they don't like on Twitter and on Facebook, and a lot of countries. We're not picking on any one country here. Russia does this to Twitter all the time now. A lot of countries are, and it's clear now that Facebook and Twitter. And by the way, we have Michelle in the audience, and she might even be on stage. Michelle, if you're here, you have been very insightful in helping us understand what's really going on in this crazy game here. So if you could chime in, this would be fantastic. The issue is that this is not specific to Facebook. The social media platforms are present globally, and they essentially are complying with whatever the country demands of them for the most part. And the question is, does America demand that Trump be banned from Facebook?
Well, so that's the question, right? No, we're not like India. We're not explicitly using government powers to demand one thing or the other. That would be a violation of the First Amendment.
I mean, that's what it appears. However, it is very interesting that it was nearly simultaneously, I mean, certainly within the same day, that it was Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I mean, essentially all the.
Do you remember? Let's first off.
Yeah.
Let's set the context, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember what also happened around that time?
Was there a storming at the Capitol?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tyler.
different
We
world event.
we had
Yeah.
insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, which Mitch McConnell,
Tyler,
the
you had that one
U.S.
queued up way
Senate
too quickly.
majority, the U.S. Senate
We
majority
were
leader, the
baiting
most
this, Tyler.
powerful
Come on.
Republican, blamed on the president in a speech. So I mean, come on, my man.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying is maybe there was a deep state request because I honestly think it's plausible that the FBI, CIA, what have you, had information that there were plans and they had a right to be concerned, and they were asking these networks to put the kibosh on this, right? So I could be convinced of that. That's why I'm saying
Remember,
maybe
that would be Trump. That would be Trump's own people.
right. Yeah, at that time, yes, indeed. Well, maybe not because it was post-election results in some capacity. So anyway,
Well, it's still Trump's
yeah,
sinking ship
yeah,
until
yeah.
the 20th at noon.
Until everyone jumps in the lifeboat. Yeah. So what,
Well, apparently Rudy Giuliani didn't make it. He was halfway in, halfway out.
he's floating in with a life preserver right now. So maybe that's our next story. I think the way to ask the poll is just to let people balance all of those thoughts simultaneously to whatever degrees though they feel that the
Yeah,
legal or the business.
everyone will take their own
Right.
perspective on it. I
Right.
think if we just ask it simply.
Right. Boil it down to, would you let Trump back on the platform, whether you think it's an ethical issue or a business issue, or that's up to you. So let's do this just for the pulse check, because we have, as we well know, the most intelligent audience in Clubhouse, and maybe in all of social media, if I dare say. So let's take advantage of this fact. We've got 300 geniuses in the room. We have quite the brain trust. So for those who do have their hands up, please put them down momentarily for our little poll here. Thank you. And so now raise your hand if you would let Mr. Trump back on Facebook. If you were the CEO of Facebook, and who knows, maybe you will be someday. So we're at 13 and climbing here, 14, 18, 19, 20, 22, 24, 28, 30, 30. Where we got here? 33, going once, going 34, 34, going twice, going 3 times, 34. Mr. Cal Patel, if you'd please make note.
I have registered that number.
Registered, yeah, for the record.
Good, yeah.
Okay, hands down, everybody. Thank you. And get hands down quickly so that we can let the other side vote against you. So now raise your hand if you would not let Mr. Trump back on Facebook. If it was your call, you're being the CEO of Facebook, and it's totally your call and yours alone. So we're already at 39, 40, 41, 42, 45, 50, 55, 56, 56, going once, 58, going 59, going twice, 59, sold at 59. So what was the first one, Cal?
I'd like to report that the first number
38.
was 34 and the second, 34. And the second number was 59.
Almost 2-1. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Wait, can they let him back with certain amount of moderation?
see, now you're complicating things all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Akil. You could have asked that before, and then but that actually brings up a good point of the discussion, which is, what if all of his posts had to go through Congress before being posted? I'm wondering how the moderation and who
Maybe an oversight committee made
Yeah.
up of the Clubhouse account.
Yeah, but here,
Clubhouse,
Tyler,
yes, Diva.
Tyler, would
Yes.
you ask people to chime in why they would or would not allow?
Yeah, so fair enough. If well, we can do that with the folks on stage, but also with the people in the audience. If you have a strong feeling one way or another, feel free to raise your hands on this so we can have a good debate on this, because it's not a landslide one way or the other, but it is interesting that this over Facebook's oversight board themselves seem to have a very difficult time figuring this out, because they were previously had said that they were going to decide this a week ago, and now they've delayed their decision ostensibly because it's not an easy decision for them to make, and it has very kind of further reaching implications, which we are now going to talk here amongst ourselves. So if anyone flash your mics, this is opt-in. You don't have to do this, but flash your mics if you have a strong take that you want to share on if letting Trump back onto Facebook, if you're on that side and you have a point, Akil and Tina and Maggie and Shane and Suzanne, okay, and Manaz, welcome back. And then, geez, who we have not heard from. Let's do Manaz, and then so in reverse order, it was Manaz and Suzanne. Go ahead.
Hi, Tyler. I said yes. I'm a minority myself and an immigrant in United States. What the beauty of United States is their constitution and freedom of speech. And let's not forget, President Trump had around 74 million vote. I don't think that's the right to silence those voters. I think as a community, as a society, if we support freedom of speech, we need to hear everyone. Yes, there are some issues, some challenges, but we don't silence people. Instead of addressing the issues and challenges. I didn't vote for him, but at the same time, I value democracy coming from a country that I'm Persian. I migrated from Iran.
Interesting
Just
perspective. Yeah.
because I value freedom of speech. I believe we need to hear the right and wrong. We need to hear the people that are for and they are against us, and we need to embrace our differences.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me a chance. This is Manaza.
Strong
Tyler,
point.
can I second that real quick
Yep.
from my perspective? From again, I grew up and I was raised in the UK, in Wales, in Cardiff, and I went back to Iraq in 1 month before the first Gulf War in 1990, and spent all 13 years under a brutal dictatorship regime where my parents told me as a teenager that walls, you can't speak ill about the government because the walls have ears. And after 2003, I spent all my career, all my life, very hard to give people right to speak. Again, and I strongly, to my core, believe that this is not specific about President Trump or anybody else, is that people should have right to speak. If people disagree that he was a cause of his preaching or whatever he taught, that some illegal activities took place, like breaching the Capitol, and all that, there's a legal system for that. I don't think anybody should be stopped the right of freedom of speech. That's the core principle of this democracy. And hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people died for that in the country in Iraq, a conflict throughout the last 18 years. That's
I
my
gotcha.
opinion.
Yeah. I got to
And
I
say,
like to
thank
chime
you very
in.
much.
I
Put me
got
on
to
the
say,
list.
when you've got the
Thank you.
Persians and Iraqis agreeing on something, that's this is a beautiful thing we've got here.
Let me just tell you something else, Tyler. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As a kid growing up in a country that starts with revolution, then 8 years war, and then you have one voice through your childhood, your adulthood. It's just so wrong. And that's why, I mean, most of us, I mean, I had status, I had job, everything in Iran, but most of us, we migrated for that freedom of speech, and that's the beauty of America.
Mm,
And
Exactly. Exactly.
I strongly support that. Some people, when they grow up with that privilege, they don't really take it for granted.
mm,
And for us, I think I support that because we know what happened when you come from a good democracy before Iran revolution, and then you get to a country of religion oppression, and that's then it forces you to migrate
hmm
and seek new home.
Yeah. So let me,
So.
and Manaz, you volunteered the point that you didn't vote for Trump, right? And it's not really appropriate for me to ask Samir, but it would be really interesting if both of you didn't vote for Trump and you're both making incredibly strong points as
No, Tyler, no, I'm more than happy to share this with you all. No, I did not vote for Trump.
see, this makes your arguments super
So,
strong, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
so the reason is just like Mina said, we were doing well in even post 2003 U.S. invasion, liberation, whatever you want to call it, or prior to that. It's not about that. It's all about the freedom that you do your own mistakes, you do your own being free is what we regulated here for the United States
Yeah, I got
to
you.
be to do.
I want now. Let's hear from the other side. In all fairness, and we do have Michelle on stage. Thank God, or she was a minute ago. Maybe we scared her off with all of
Hey,
Wait,
this.
wait,
Tyler,
wait. Can I give my
Tyler. Yeah, I was
perspective?
going to say
Because
Suzanne wanted to talk.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Of course, I want to
yeah,
hear.
me
I want
too.
flash
So
your mics
because
if you argue the other side of this point. So
so
we got Sid
I
and Michael
I will
and
be arguing the other side.
okay,
So
okay,
let me
So
just speak real
Suzanne,
quick.
Suzanne. Yeah, go ahead.
So
Suzanne, yeah.
I worked for the company that used to do all the monitoring of, or does all the monitoring of all the Facebook and the Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
They're large, large clients of the consulting world.
Okay.
And these regulating the posts actually is big business.
Yep.
I'm a Democrat and born and raised in the United States, fourth generation San Franciscan. So I've been here a long time. I'm all about getting Trump off the stage. He's, in my opinion, a huge embarrassment. Now, I understand the right to the free speech, etc. I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade. I get it. I get how I value the Constitution. With that being said, he's a disruptor. He is inciting violence that hurt innocent people, and that is not okay, right? That's my opinion, once again, but that's why I think he needs to be stopped. There are certain things, he is a narcissist. And he doesn't need to be speaking anymore. I think my dogs even agree with
he
me.
agrees.
Maybe that's Suzanne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Tyler, I have a real quick question for
diagnosing him
everybody
as a
making the
narcissist?
First Amendment argument. Just a real quick question:
Wait,
have they
was
ever
that a
read the first
diagnosis?
five?
Was it a diagnosis?
The First Amendment argument that's
Hey,
being made,
Justin,
and it
shut up for a
is
Hey,
second. Hey, Justin,
hey, let's go one
Justin,
at a time.
I
it
have
is.
something
no.
to add
So
about
no, I just have a
regulation.
quick question. Hold on,
Nobody
I have a
knows
quick
who's a
question
narcissist
for
or not.
anybody
Nobody knows.
making
We don't have any
the
psychologists in
First
here.
Amendment argument. It's really simple and quick, because I hear a lot of government centric arguments with the freedom of speech. So it does come down to the First Amendment. Have you actually read the first 5 words of the First Amendment? It
Have you?
says the government shall make no law, and in specifically, just to add in context here, this is not a government free speech or First Amendment issue. So I just wanted to add that there.
And your point is that
Yeah, we
it's
have
it's
other
a
laws
private
too.
company issue, right?
We have other
Exactly.
laws
And
too.
actually, if the government were to step
Thank you,
in
Justin.
and regulate how Facebook should be banning or not banning, then it would become a First Amendment issue because the
We have
government would
other
be
Exactly.
laws
making a law.
too. We have other laws too. The First Amendment isn't the only law.
Greg, for freedom of speech, it is.
It's not the only law surrounding freedom of speech, dude.
What are the
Okay,
Yeah,
other
there's
it's
laws?
the
Are
there's
there
primary
They're
law.
constitutionalists
all of the
in
Greg,
It's
laws.
the
Greg, you're not
issue
always
is
right.
freedom of speech.
Well,
No,
it may not just
I'm
be
gonna
the
see my way
issue.
out. Tyler, have a great speech.
Nobody's
Enjoy the room.
nobody's smart. Nobody smart actually says that these companies should be regulated by the First Amendment. Everybody who has a modicum of intelligence, unlike the last 5 minutes of discussion that I just hopped into, says that this is an antitrust issue,
What's your
and that's it.
so Greg, would you let Trump back on Facebook or not as CEO?
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
what's your main argument for that?
Well, my main argument is things surrounding failure to supply in the Sherman Act. So basically when you become a monopoly, you're one of the products that you supply, whether you like it or not, is to, and in fact, the people on the platform are your products, they're vendors, and you're selling ads and doing all this other stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff in the Sherman Act that I've been talking with my attorney about it at the very least, unlike Justin, who I don't think has any legal not only doesn't have legal expertise, but can't afford to hire legal expertise. I've talked about this
with people who know. And yeah, there's antitrust issues surrounding this because of their failure to supply as a monopoly position on social media
But you
and
you
internet
you mean
providers.
a monopoly of what, eyeballs? What's the monopoly?
Yeah. So social platforms are a market segment.
Hey, Greg, this is Sig. We talked about this a couple weeks ago in this room, and we were talking about Parler. Is there any incitement of violence that you, as the CEO of whatever platform, would say, well,
Yes.
okay, that goes too far. Now I'm going to deplatform you.
Yeah.
Is there anything that somebody
Absolutely.
could do?
Yes.
What is
Yeah,
that?
because
Where's that limit?
there we can actually go back to the First Amendment and some of the Supreme Court and other courts' decisions on interpretation of the First Amendment as it relates to, it's the whole yelling fire in a crowded theater type of thing.
Exactly.
It has to be, but this is the thing. The standard of evidence for incitement of violence is ultra high. And so, for example, Trump didn't meet that standard in his speech before this supposed coup on the Capitol. There's a lot of people who agree with this, a lot of people who disagree with this. I don't care. Hate me all you want to. I'm just saying the facts. I don't even like Trump, but he didn't.
So I'm going to take a
Can
really
I chime in
yeah, one
as a
second.
Canadian next to the? Yeah.
Yeah, 1 second, Heyman. I'll do something I never do in this room typically, and then I want to hear Michelle's take at working at Facebook, with the caveat that, working at big companies, often you have to be very careful about what you say and might not be able to say much. So we understand and respect that, Michelle. So here's my take on this, and somebody actually hinted at this. I think it was Akil, which is Facebook could put a delay where they could review, put all of Trump's content into a queue where they personally review it. Their board could review each post before it goes live. And if they felt that it was a call to violence, like yelling fire in a theater, or it was a clear breach of, First Amendment, or et cetera, those kinds of things, then they could ban that. And of course, that would take some resources. But I think the cost of those resources would be worth having settling this free speech issue, where you have a whole lot of Americans feeling like, and a whole lot of people in government feeling like one side is being silenced more than the other. And I say all of this because as the people on stage, and my brain is racing, but I'm trying. Samir has a background from Iraq, and who was the lady from Iran, Manaz, both made I felt really strong points, which was, as people who didn't vote for Trump, who come from another part of the world where there very much are silenced by the government, that the point is that if we should take extraordinary lengths to at least give the appearance that we are still a place where all sides are able to communicate, and that
Well,
we should take care to make sure that people don't feel silenced. And bringing Trump on the platform would be a strong signal to say we actually very much do value diversity of views. We understand the importance, but that you could you have the safety valve, which I think it was Akil's brilliant suggestion. Yeah,
Tyler,
and have the best of both,
um,
essentially.
yeah, so I agree with the direction that you're going. And as the new CEO of Facebook, I would bring you onto the team to help implement this. And here's the thing, what we can't do, because the devil's in the details. We can't staff the team that reviews these posts with people that think that they can diagnose people with psychological disorders over the internet, which is actually something that I heard
100%.
from my friend Suzanne here, who I do think is well-meaning. But we cannot say that Trump is a narcissist. You just don't like what he has to say. And narcissist
Oh,
is actually a word that has psychological and medical implications. And people
okay.
have,
So Greg,
and
you
even you,
joined
Suzanne,
late.
even you,
You
Suzanne,
joined
even
late,
you,
Greg.
even wait. Even you, Suzanne, and you can respond after. But I'm not going to accuse you of doing that. So here's I am saying I'm not accusing Suzanne of doing this, but people do it all the time. And actually,
Yeah.
this is that we can't allow this team who is they're looking for a dog whistle behind every word. He said the word fight. That means he wants people to go burn down the Capitol. Oh my God, no! Like, and these psychological disorders that are being diagnosed by not even experts over the internet, but also experts. There are psychologists who are going out there and saying, um, actually, this guy is a textbook narcissist or a textbook psychopath or whatever, and actually, it's against their code of ethics, and they should all be banned and disbarred from their associations based on the laws of those very associations for doing it. So this is like trying to have a fair trial when everybody in the world has already decided you're guilty, but before you even go to trial, in the worst case scenario, and we've got to avoid that. So if I was CEO, I would do it in a way that does what Tyler is saying, but tries to bring a modicum of sanity to the judging process of whether it truly incites violence or not.
That
So
actually
Tyler,
makes a
one
Tyler,
of
lot of
the
Whoa,
things,
sense.
whoa,
Tyler, one of
whoa,
the,
whoa, whoa! Easy, 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 easy. I want to give it to Michelle to just hear your thoughts on this, Michelle, and maybe you can only express personal views, which we understand. But you were incredibly helpful and insightful when we were trying to figure out what's going on in India when there was the hashtag. What was it? Ban Modi or resign Modi.
Resign Modi.
Yeah. And then Michelle had a great point, which is, hey, we are dealing with hundreds of countries on a daily basis. These are semi-automated things that are algorithmically based, and sometimes accidents do happen. It makes perfect sense, actually. I hadn't considered that, so I'm just wondering what's going through your mind as we talk about this, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have my own opinion, and I mean, many may not agree with that, but I think everyone is probably aware that we are expecting the oversight board decision on May 5th, and Facebook as a company made its decision as a private company. But again, the oversight board role is actually to sort of help the platform decision makers balance this kind of decision around online safety or freedom of speech. So all I can say is just let's wait what judgment they make or final decision they make on May 5th.
Can somebody actually point to the incitement of violence and tweet it out and say that you've got it?
Yeah.
Because it's got to be direct incitement of violence. And then the other thing I'll say is when I was on Facebook, where half my friends are liberals and half my friends are conservatives, and I'm really neither, most of the incitement of violence that I've seen over the past couple of years has been people saying that Trump supporters should die and let's go get them and fuck these people and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't see it. We should take the same board and make sure they review all the other tripe and crap that's coming out of social media
That's
as well.
Greg.
so Tyler,
Hold on.
Greg, look,
Wait. That's a fantastic idea. I'm going to get Ellen from Norway, and the Norwegians are going to play the neutral role in, or get
What
some.
I can also just quickly add to that
Oh
is that
boy.
I think we actually, what's interesting is that we have complaints from both sides. So one
right?
side believing we're favoring one over the other. So I think it's pretty subjective.
Yeah, well,
One
here,
question I have
Michelle.
is,
Wait 1 second, Akhil, because Michelle, that's where it gets super, super interesting. Because let's imagine a scenario for a second, um, where Trump does win the next election, and now it's similar to Modi, and Trump says, "Oh, by the way, you see all of these Democrat members of Congress? Yeah, they're not allowed on Facebook anymore. Facebook, or you have to shut down in America." And now you're inviting that scenario if by saying that Trump shouldn't be allowed on the platform now. But if you find a way to let Trump on the platform now, then it becomes a bit more of egalitarian precedence of what Facebook is working to represent in a way. That's sort of my point. Is we need to at least strive to demonstrate some desire to be magnanimous, although I'm willing to acknowledge that we should do that carefully with controls in place. But that the appearance of egalitarianism, at least, there's some importance to that, is there not?
I
Tyler,
think this is
one
why what I just quickly want to say is that this is why we're relying on the oversight board decision on May
Right,
5th,
right.
because they may actually decide that he's allowed to come back on the platform. And
That'll be
Defer the decision to committee, then you can blame the committee.
yeah. So
so one question, guys, I
delegation,
have.
yeah.
Yeah, one quick question is, whatever he's been alleged or he said people say he did. He did it while he was the president. He's not the president anymore, and he didn't do any of allegedly didn't do any of this crazy stuff when he was campaigning for the presidency, right? So
Yeah.
does he have the power now to do these kind of things now that he's not the president anymore? He hasn't been pretty social for the last 4 months. Does he still hold that kind of pull with people?
Yeah. So
Yeah. Can I
Yes.
jump? Oh, Heyman, do you want to
uh,
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks.
Hey,
So as a oh,
before
sorry.
you
Go
go,
ahead.
Heyman, I want to do a quick room reset because we are the largest room in Clubhouse English by a large margin, actually, because there's a lot of people joining. So, and I think that's the first time in this time zone. We've been the largest English Clubhouse room in the other time zone a few times now, but this is the first time in this time zone, I think. So, cheers to everybody on that front as the room continues to grow each day. It's fantastic, and all I have to say is look at the people on stage, which make that it's a group effort. So everyone take a bow on that.
I think we just overtook the shoot your shot with the
If
sexiest singles.
is
So I
that
think
That's great.
is
I guess
that
we've got.
is that even possible,
Hang on,
Cal?
I'm going over there. I'm going over there now.
Yeah.
No, Greg, please.
So
Can I
Shoot your
make a
shot
couple of
with me if you
comments?
have to.
yes,
Just
There's a lot of things that are being ignored about all of this. So I had a lot to say, but I'm actually just gonna focus on just one part of it real quickly, which is we keep arguing about did he incite violence, but we're not looking at the people that actually did what they did. These people were really pissed off when Trump turned around and reneged about it and said that, he afterwards he kind of semi talked it down a little bit, but all of his supporters who did that were really pissed off because their perspective is he told us to do this. He told us he's
right.
coming with us. This is yes, he incited it because the people who were listening to him felt incited into action. It doesn't matter what he actually said from our
That's a
perspective. What
great point.
happened,
What's
what matters
Yeah,
is how these
if
what's
we're
people
going to be
responded to it.
what's
if
going
we're going to be
on with
responsible
Parlor
for the
at
actions
the
of
moment?
everybody that listens to us, then we're all in a lot of trouble.
That's not the point. The point is those people felt
No, I
incited.
agree with you. I agree with you, Michael.
But what
I agree with you.
what is going on with Parlor? Because it was said that they are allowed back on the Apple Store. Are they? Is Parlor still going? And this could be an
I guess
interesting.
Putin made a couple of phone calls. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, but that's apparently what happened. Is it's being hosted in Russia
Server.
and it's on the Apple App Store. And is it? Has there been no incidents? Is it still there? I guess is my question.
Yeah,
Right
I don't
now,
know. It's there for now. I don't think it is the Parler that existed before, nor do I think that Parler is the right plaintiff in the case that I'm making here.
No, but it could be an interesting data point because if it's still there and it's being moderated appropriately and such, then that would relinquish some of the fears that people have about
That
Trump coming back onto Facebook.
that's yes, but that's not the reason that it was allowed to come back, and that's all I can say about that.
Because of the congressional hearings around monopoly controls of the App Store and such. Yeah.
Oh, there
here's
you
some of the
go.
most recent reviews of Parler. Crap app, not the real Parler, and I hate this. Trying to remove completely. Great app to speak freely. This is a fake imitation of actual Parler. Free speech, marketplace of ideals, right to express your thoughts. These are the only democratic principles that matter to our society. I dislike the new Parler app and how it is. Bring back the old Parler when we used to easily navigate it. I don't recognize this Parler. It's interesting to read the.
Those
It
are
doesn't seem like people
th-
don't seem to like it anymore.
those are
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
recent.
everybody
reviews
wants to
are
talk about the First Amendment, but actually, what I talk about is Voltaire and the fact that I may not like what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, and that to me transcends. It's a human right. It transcends the legal definition that Justin likes to rat hole about as a political nerd and all that kind of stuff. I love the idea of freedom of expression, and I'm actually willing to take some of the harm that comes along with it, even if it harms me, because it's just such a thing. Like you start to shut it down and things go like we've written philosophy about this for centuries, y'all. Let's not do it again.
Can the Canadian neighbor chime in now?
Yeah, go ahead, Taman. Sorry.
Okay. So, as an observer from Toronto of the whole situation in the US and having access to the US news stations and Canadian and the international stations, I have to say that we need to look at the facts. Twitter's only, I just pulled up, Pew says that Twitter's only 23% of US users, right, use Twitter, while Facebook's 69. And on Twitter, 10% of users are the ones who produce 80% of all the tweets. But if you look at the US media as well, like, most of their profits dropped after Trump. Why? Because they were the ones who were actually making Trump the star. Because I think what happened was in Canada, we don't actually go reporting on his tweets. We never had that. We had real good discussions about what the issues were. We looked at both sides. In the
Hey man,
US, all I saw was echo chambers.
those stats are meaningless because they operate as a cartel.
No,
They
no,
call
no.
each other and they make
Okay,
decisions together.
you
But
got to stop.
I agree
One
that
sec for
no,
a sec.
I
Hold on.
agree with the some of the stuff in the middle, but the
No,
stats
but
are
hold
meaningless.
on. Greg, hold on for a second, okay? Because think about it. Most of the people in the US got their information about Trump's tweets through media, right? Whether it was
Yeah,
Fox or MSNBC, they're the ones who actually made him famous, right? Made the tweets even worse by their
sure.
own opinion heads making it taking sides on them. Because if we let his tweets stand as they are without all this interpretation by media, like these token heads on media channels, I think we would have people would have been able to see. But people are not stupid, right? They could see the tweets and say, wait, he jumped from this to this,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But Jeff Zucker figured that yeah, everybody thinks that these guys are just so insanely smart that they don't make mistakes. But Jeff Zucker and some of the people that were enabling Trump figured it out after he won. They didn't think he was going to win,
Right.
and then they go, "Oh shit, what are we going to do?" And then it turns out all that you can do is pull the rug out from under him to try to keep it from happening again. And now you get all the because they loved the money, they loved the ratings, they loved all those
Mhm.
things. But now they're trying these dirty tactics, under the auspices of protecting people
Right.
from the incitement of violence. When honestly, that is the lamest coup that has ever happened in the history of Earth. I mean, please, I can't even. I'm not even scared, bro.
And I agree with you. I mean, keeping Trump out in the open is better because and also not squashing his record. Remember, there was a whole thing with the Library of Congress where they wanted all their tweets, right? But Twitter is refusing it. So I think that's wrong because if you see all his tweets in context, then you realize, wait, then you have a good story, right? Not
Well,
the
and
interpretations.
I agree with you, Him, and one of the things that I'm pointing out is when it comes to those stats of like, it's really easy to say, I don't think you said this, but it's really easy for people to hear the Twitter thing and say, not a monopoly. But actually, look up the Phoebus cartel and what they did to light bulb pricing. This was one of the original examples of antitrust law. And I think you'll see what I'm saying here. These companies like Tim Cook and Zuckerberg are not the type of enemies that don't talk to each other. They
Right.
freaking call each other all the time. They've got each other's cell phone numbers. I've got their cell phone numbers. And I just send them poop emojis all the time because they're such shitheads. But the fact of the matter is, they
Hey
want to hear
guys,
what
I've
I
got a
have to say.
question.
They want to hear what I have to say. They want to talk, but for each other, they actually listen to each other and make decisions in a coordinated fashion.
Go ahead. I want to add something about what Greg is saying. In the history, monopolies, which actually they are not, they want not to be seen as a monopoly, but monopolies, big company in the history, they start to being cooperative with governments when their business start to be in danger. So even when these industries, the big tech, are not regulated as we would like to maybe, they are starting to take actions in order to preserve their business. And that's what we're going to see all around the world. And they don't most block anybody, by the way.
Yes, I agree with that totally because do you know who the people in my life who are warning me the most right now are the people that fled socialist and communist countries to come to the US, and they're all pulling me aside and saying, Greg, what are we going to do about this? Because these companies have become the size of countries through technology leverage, and the power that is concentrated in what is essentially non-meritocratic companies. They run internally like socialist empires, and then they take the capitalism interface and our politics and the unfortunate merger of those things that exist, and they go make whatever they need to make happen without any scrutiny from the law. And it's worse than when Microsoft was a monopoly because now there's like a ton of them who have all figured out that coordinating with each other is the most ideal strategy, and together they've formed the largest monopoly, basically the size of a small country within a country. In fact, I think their power is now more than most countries, maybe even the US itself. And that's what we need to be paying attention to here.
Right. So I
Hey,
want,
Tyler.
yeah, I
I
want.
So
would
I
like to
have a
add something,
Well,
Tyler.
okay. So let me do a mic flash if you've got a really hot take. I see John. Let me see who else. Flash your mic with a hot take. Suzanne, Carl, Maggie,
Tina,
Samir. Okay,
Elisa.
okay. Geez, wow, we might be here for a while.
It's good.
Let me go from the bottom as I did. Welcome back, John. Love to hear. Can you do 30 seconds? We're gonna try and quickly go through these quickly. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just flashing in support of Greg's comments about
Okay.
their oversized influence, not just economically, but because they're influencers at scale.
Yep.
Okay.
Samir, you went before Carl. We haven't spoken yet. Go ahead.
Yes, my point is I think there's too much emphasis being placed on the platforms themselves. And if we think that well, the platforms, yes, they do have significant amount of influence, the type of media that they can and dispute, but still, I think the focus should be, or it's on the people themselves. If you
Okay.
believe everything that you hear, it's a problem, and you need to make your own decision. That's
So
Mag,
your
my take.
solution is to fix the psychology of every individual
we
Yeah, I don't
instead of
agree with
yeah,
that.
but
fixing. Come
we
on.
gotta run through
Now,
people's points here. Maggie, were you
Yeah,
yeah,
go.
flashing?
let's go. Yeah, and Lisa, maybe. Or
Maggie, were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really quickly, I have been listening. I have lots of thoughts, but the one thing that I would ask about, because I like to try to focus on solution sets, and
Yep.
I've been reading smart people like Frank Fukuyama, whatever one thinks of him, and others who have written about middleware as a possible preserver of democracy and free speech, and also removing some of the power that Greg and others have been talking about that currently resides in the hands of the platforms.
Okay. So we're trying to do. Thank you for that, Maggie and Samir. We're trying to keep 30-second closing thoughts on this. Carl, welcome. What's your thought on this?
I kind of like to ask a question that I really
Oh
want answered,
boy.
so I'm happy to go
Oh
last.
boy. Okay.
let's go through some people that flashed before, because
Yeah.
they
Go
did.
ahead.
Is Suzanne, Tina, and Elisa.
Okay.
Let's make sure we at least get there 30 seconds,
Go
and
ahead.
then
In that
yeah.
order. Suzanne.
Hi, it's Suzanne, and I'm actually responding to Greg since he kept
But
saying he
we'll
would
be here
give
all
me the
night if
floor
you
to
do that,
respond.
Suzanne.
Right? But
I
I
know.
mean,
Everybody thinks I'm so pretty and wants to talk to
Greg,
me.
my
DMs.
trust
Suzanne, you
It
can
Greg.
is the shoot your
Greg
shot.
is
shoot
It
your
is the
very
shot
shoot
with
smart.
smart.
That's
Greg
You
the
in
got
one.
to
his
slide in
Greg
the
DMs.
is very
DM.
smart. There we go.
You got to
Um,
slide.
I'm waiting.
I believe there are always three sides to every story. His side, her
Did
side,
you
and the
pick that
truth.
number randomly?
Ugh,
I'm
Greg,
weak.
can you
Okay,
shut
Just
sorry.
let
Here we
up?
her
go.
let her finish, Greg. That's okay. Just
I'm
let
going.
30. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
Let's.
right now, what I see Greg as is a disruptor. Now, why? Everybody loves Greg. He made a lot of money. Good for you, Greg.
And
Hats
I'm
off.
smarter than you.
But
That's also,
oh my God, Greg.
yeah. No, but you're a nice
Seriously,
person
like
too.
step off the stage for a moment
No,
and listen. Like it could
not when
really
you directly
benefit
attack
you.
me. If you
I'm
can
gonna
talk without
I'm
directly attacking me, I will
sorry
keep quiet.
everyone. I did not mean this. I needed
That's the
just
only
to
rule.
okay,
If you
I'm
want to
not
attack
gonna
me, then I'm
talk
going to punch
like I'm
back.
you're
Okay, I'm going to
engaged.
give
You're
you
in the
20
fight.
Yeah,
seconds
Fight
not to
is
Suzanne,
attack me.
this
over.
is
Go
Greg,
ahead, Greg.
Greg.
you stepped into the sand trap. What do you have a closing thought on this conversation? Not directed at
I
Greg?
can't because
Okay.
Greg will interrupt me, but thank you very much,
He
Tyler.
won't. He won't. Just make your final thoughts. We're just collecting the final thoughts on this point.
Can't do it right now.
Okay.
Thanks though.
Fair enough. Manaz?
Hmm.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I agree that this platform, they're becoming so gigantic, and the control of them and the regulation, it's very hard. Let me give you a quick example. With the COVID, as clinical informatic working in a healthcare and know some tech, one of the biggest challenges still we are facing to convince patients and employees to get vaccine. And there is so many information that is misinformation out there in internet, in this social platform, that we don't have control over it, and we are unable to control it, and they are feeding our society toxic information. And that's why still we are in this mess, and we in some area we still struggle to control this infection. I think it should we should have more people that they know about technology. Also, they are making the regulation and law. and we lag in that area in any aspect of the healthcare or actual technology, and that needs to change, because when you have a technology big gigantic tech person like Mike Zuckerberg going to Senate to present it, just you see on the other side there's a big gap of lack of knowledge, and that is hurting our society. We need to have people that
Bravo.
they understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, Tina.
Bravo.
Tina, you were flashing.
I was.
Go for it.
Okay.
30 seconds.
So,
Shot clock. 30 seconds. Go for it.
okay. So this is actually kind of a little bit of a news story, and I don't know if it's been covered, but roughly two weeks ago, Chris Poole, who is the creator of 4chan, left Google.
Yes.
And one of the things that I kind of wanted to bring up that I wasn't sure if anybody has thought about is, number one, not sure why he left, but where is he going? And if that is possibly a possibility of him being snatched up by a yet to be revealed competitor or possible disruptor, to if somebody doesn't allow those people who we have silenced on social media to really come back and allow those voices to be used in places like Parler, which obviously has been changed, but something that will truly allow those voices to be heard in an open forum like we're doing now, because that's kind of the revolutionary type of situation that would present itself in the situation we've got now, because we might feel like things have changed, but I think it's almost like the bubble's about to burst.
Mm-hmm. So the Moot, as he's known, is and
Yeah.
he was the creator of 4chan, left Google. He was there for 5 years. Um,
I'll ask him where he's going.
Yeah, we have friends in common, so we could figure
Yeah.
that out. Yeah. My suspicion is he doesn't really need to be there right now. It's not some folks who don't. If you're there and you don't need to be there, it might not be the most hospitable climate at the moment.
Yeah, I've got 10 seconds of insight on this for you, Tyler,
Go
because I
ahead.
was on the roof at Google for a little while, making millions of dollars a year doing nothing.
Go ahead.
And literally doing nothing, by the way. I didn't report to anybody. I just got to sit around and think. They like to collect people like toys when they can spare this kind of money in case you come up with something. They don't want it to go to a competitor or a startup. And I bet our friend Chris here, Moot, as he's known in the 4chan world and beyond, started to have this edge him out a little bit, like it did me. And every time I was in this circumstance, you do strange things in your brain when you get nothing but positive feedback for doing nothing of merit. If you're a smart person who wants to do good things in the world, and he might not even have an idea of what he wants to do next.
Yeah, I
He
suspect
just needs to get out.
Yeah, I think it could be that, and I'm optimistic that he actually does have another trick up his
Yeah,
sleeve. So it'd be interesting
I
to
think
see if
he
he does.
will, and we need him.
Yeah,
We need him.
he's got a really interesting mind, and it would be very interesting to see what would cook up, given the current climate of things.
I'll invest in anything he does.
Yeah,
Tyler, can I get 30 seconds?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. Okay. So I fundamentally align with Duffy on this point. And what I want to add to it, though, is that the laws and regulations and the way we view the world is historical. And the reality is that we are building for the future. The one thing we haven't done is we haven't built a system that can reflect the entrepreneur and innovation of the future. And that's where we continue to get stuck. So our legislation and the way that we understand freedom of speech and all of the laws are hard to apply to a futuristic world, and that's where we're getting stuck. So I'm in firm belief that we need to create legislation and process and systems that can keep up and maintain a reflection of today's and tomorrow's technologies.
I like that, Marvin. Thanks for that.
Yep. Sorry, Tyler.
We're doing 30 seconds. Go ahead, Florina. 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yes. So I loved what Manaz had to say, and I also agree with Greg on this point. One resource that I would recommend is actually a documentary called The Century of the Self. So this was an amazing documentary, series of just short films. It's a documentary series on consumerism and commodification, and how business and business folks and politicians back, post World War II, essentially leveraged the psychoanalytical learnings of Sigmund Freud and others in order to sort of control the minds of the population. So that I think it's a great series, and I'm very interested if anyone has seen it.
I have,
Their
yes.
thoughts
It's wild, yeah.
in another room, perhaps. Yep.
Super wild.
What's the name again, Serena? What was it?
The Century of the Self.
Very good watch.
Yeah.
Century, is it?
Yes, Century, yeah. There's a bunch of other headlines I want to jump into, and they are fuel for furious debates, equal to what we're having now. But I'll tease you with a couple that aren't, just before we jump into that.
Did you do the Yahoo one, Tyler?
Not yet. Let's do that. That one's not so crazy. Yeah, Verizon says
it's not serious, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, so Verizon says it will sell Yahoo to AOL. I'm sorry. It says it will sell Yahoo and AOL to a private equity firm called Apollo Global Management for $5 billion, keeping a 10% stake in the company, which it will rebrand as Yahoo. And a couple of background points to this is
it's half of what they paid or less.
Right. It's
and
less than what they paid.
Apollo also owns the Venetian Casino in Las Vegas,
yeah,
and Michael's Craft Stores. It's like the land of lost toys for companies. And yet another example.
It is the land of lost.
Verizon
Do you include TechCrunch in that as well?
I think it's called the geriatrics back.
Verizon is the drunk uncle at Thanksgiving that you take the keys away from and don't let them buy things anymore because they're terrible at it.
Yes, but the Verizon. I have some insight on this. Verizon CEO is now Hans Westerling, who is a Swede who used to previously the CEO of Ericsson, actually, and he's very focused on turning Verizon into a leading player
from Ericsson.
Yes.
To how far we've fallen. Wow, yeah. Ericsson is an amazing company.
Yeah, it is super innovative, super at the edge of creating 5G and 6G now, and so it was a very strategic hire for Verizon, and it means they want to focus on the telecommunications side, and the media side essentially at this point is a distraction from that, to be honest, if under the new CEO Hans. And I've met Hans many times. Hans has spoken at my events on stage, has even sponsored my events, so I'm a bit biased. I really like Hans. He's very smart. He's very capable.
That's good news.
Yeah, it is.
That's really good
news.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And it used to be, by the way, just for context, T-Mobile and Verizon and AT&T and Sprint were the four big players in America. And then T-Mobile and Sprint merged. And you had John Legere, who the CEO of T-Mobile, who is roaming the halls of Clubhouse more than anybody. He's more addicted to anybody than Clubhouse. Somewhat funny.
Nicest guy, by the way.
Sweet guy and brilliant, and doesn't wear his brain on his sleeve. The guy is deceptively brilliant, by the way.
He gives away money,
and he's very charitable
on Clubhouse.
As well. Yeah, he does. Yeah, I think he during his time at T-Mobile, I became a T-Mobile. I left AT&T to join T-Mobile because of John, and put money in T-Mobile because of John, and I made a killing on T-Mobile because of John. So again, I'm biased there. But John is no longer at T-Mobile, and now you have Hans at Verizon. So with John gone from T-Mobile and Hans at Verizon, Verizon's now actually has a chance to kind of come back as a leader.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I'm not generally a recipient of happy news in this category, but the fact what you're saying here, Tyler, is putting a smile on my dark heart.
Well, we need more. Currently we need as many players racing in the U.S. mobile carrier space as possible, because the last thing you want is a duopoly where they start,
Let him know if he needs any help, that I'm happy to provide it, actually, because this is an area that is near and dear to my heart, connectivity. And I kind of worked in and around this space there at Apple.
Yeah.
And so some interesting connections there. I'd love to help him. I think John is another great example. I was so sad to see him leave T-Mobile, but I understand it's being the CEO of something like that is not the highfalutin absolute power position that most people think it is.
Right. But it'll be interesting to watch Hans at Verizon. And my personal take on it is he doesn't want nothing to do with media, honestly. And then the previous,
Absolutely.
regime at Verizon wanted to diversify because they thought that they were going to become commoditized as carriers. They were just going to become dumb pipes as it is, and that the real game was the media game. As if you're a dumb pipe carrier, and they was potentially. If you want to get a little conspiratorial, and I do have a sound file for this, that if you are dumb pipes and the new game is media, and that if you can break up the net neutrality as it was tested in America, then as dumb pipes, it really is a media game. And that now that it's not, and that the net neutrality was tested, and it seems like we're going to keep net
And
neutrality.
now Apple is trying to become a media company thanks to Eddie Q and Tim Cook. So they're going to destroy their core product areas as well. It's such a beautiful thing, and I think maybe Verizon decided they didn't want to compete with Apple in this category.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I
Don't
don't. Yeah, they don't want
don't
to be.
compete with a dumb friend who has 1,000 times as much money as you do.
Yeah. So it's there's a lot of background to that, but I think if you're really interested, dig into the net neutrality and why Verizon thought they wanted to become a media company. There's some surprises there, kind of buried in that graveyard. Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question: Does anybody have insight on Comcast being a player in that space or a competitor? Because they're getting into mobile.
They're getting into
and they're already
satellite
in
as well.
media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like they're definitely going to be competition, if not already.
Yeah, Comcast saw the writing on the wall years ago.
Though?
Yeah, well,
Say that
not, yeah, they are they are an MVNO, but that's not the if you saw the agreements between these companies, it's like a five-dimensional chess game. What some of these companies are actually required to provide MVNO services to avoid antitrust in some cases. So it's not as simple as it looks in terms of Comcast getting favorable pricing as an MVNO that allows them to compete even with the company that's providing them the underlying wireless infrastructure. It's really crazy. It's worth its own room on the topic. I know a lot about it for reasons that you might be able to guess. And I think that Comcast should not be underestimated here because the guy who runs it is really smart. They saw the writing on the wall about this about, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, and they've been preparing for it ever since, including they do asymmetric warfare. So for example, they can fool a giant tech company into spending years and millions or maybe even more dollars on a project that is a wild goose chase and just exists as kind of a tactic to slow them down while Comcast actually executes the strategy, completely different strategy internally behind closed doors. They can actually keep secrets, unlike Apple, for example. Steve used to be able to keep secrets. Tim has no ability to keep secrets because he's too collaborative. And he thinks everybody, so he's a fool, and Comcast fools him all the time. And they do it repeatedly. They come in and they do this thing, and then they stop it, and they're like, sorry, psych, just kidding. And then they come back in and say, hey, do you want to do this? Oh yeah, we'll do that too. It's really crazy.
So
Greg, just spell it out a little bit for the audience. Just what specific thing did Comcast fool Apple into doing? Just so that they're like,
I can't
say. You can't. Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair.
There's another interesting article on Apple Today about Apple's ban on iOS browser engines, which would have made iOS. It would have made the web browsers strong enough to make apps that can compete with the native apps, but apparently Apple was throttling the development of the browsers so that they could keep the benefit of having native mobile apps, which is this whole debate now on Capitol Hill. So the headline is Apple's ban on alternative iOS browser engines and years of delays in adding features to WebKit can explain why web apps are not a viable alternative to App Store apps. But that's common sense. If you want to maintain your App Store dominance, you don't want your app developers being able to create, browser apps that are equally powerful to your native apps, because then there's no point
Don't
in,
forget about your 30% cut.
yeah, then you lose your 30% cut and the breaks your
You
whole world.
you could simplify all of the App Store guidelines that's like 100 pages long into just one guideline, which is don't make Apple mad, or they'll find a way to use the App Store guidelines against you. That'd be a way simpler read. Just don't do
Exactly.
things that you think would make Apple mad. That's the whole freaking thing. Because at the end of the day, it was like Phil Schiller running it for a long time, and that guy has more money than God. And when you make him mad, he does anything he can to stop you. And then, he gets his seatbelt extender for his Porsche and drives away into the sunset.
Well, the problem in this is that kind of Apple and people who share Apple's perspective is that, well, if you don't like the App Store, there's always the open web. And then the point is that they were intentionally not allowing development of the mobile web browsers to even equally compete with the native apps, essentially.
Yeah, it's better to be one or two layers camouflaged on this stuff so that when you go onto stupid Clubhouse forums, people can say, no, 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 you can do this, you can do that, and then try to take the wind out of the argument. But it turns out that these people are diabolical enough to have one layer of subtlety behind their plans. And we need to get to a point where people can talk about that instead of trying to dunk on each other by saying that it's a free market or some stupid retort like that.
So before we get into the really hot debatable point, here's just a few more. A new cryptocurrency called Chia is debuting today, and its dependence on storage instead of a computer power may be behind a rise in hard drive and SSD sales. But the whole point of it is they're really trying to address the greenness of the energy usage of a currency, which is a kind of becoming a hot issue, which we debated in the other session. Toronto-based Wealth Simple, an online investment management service, raises $610 million at a $4 billion valuation to compete with seemingly Wealthfront. It's just a very hot space. And then here's an interesting one. And this is being reported by Forbes, Telegraph, and Gadget a lot. So the SEC filing is for a company called Rockley Photonics, which you've never heard of. What's interesting in this SEC filing, there was some interesting information revealed in this SEC filing because they're going to try an IPO. And Rockley is a developer of sensors that can be used for blood sugar and glucose monitoring in real time. And more alcohol as well. So you could have an real-time alcohol blood monitor, a glucose monitor, and a blood pressure monitor in real time. But what's interesting is in this SEC filing is they disclosed that Apple is currently their biggest customer, and very substantially so. And it's people behind the scenes have now connected that this is expected to appear in the upcoming Apple Watches, which begs some very interesting questions indeed. Is what happens when you have an Apple Watch that can do real-time alcohol, blood level monitoring, glucose monitoring, and blood pressure monitoring with regard to the future of medical, because one of the things we were talking about in a very recent heated medical debate, the future of medtech is if humans have sensors, and then whose data is that? Is it yours? Is it Apple's? Is it shareable with a third party? Could Apple become sell you health insurance based on the data that they can collect from you in real time? Could you get a discount on your healthcare in real time if you have really good levels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And how would your
is it equitable? Is
right?
it equitable if they allow you to sell insurance based on something like alcoholism when alcoholism
Exactly.
inordinately affects people of lower socioeconomic status?
Could your employer give you an Apple Watch in exchange for the data, access to the data? All employees get a free Apple Watch because the employer pays
X-Files.
your health care, and they want to see they're paying your health care, and they might get a cheaper health care costs, or their healthcare costs would be lowered if they could prove that you have very good signals and data points that they share with, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot to debate here about future
Well,
Apple
to
Watches
say,
and this data. Yeah.
well, Tyler, yeah, well, to add to that, I mean, people are so gadget and data crazy. I mean, I wear a couple of them, and you can already do this glucose monitoring, maybe not as real time as these, or as quickly or as frequently. But the other one is your employers already, had the insurers come in and do the cholesterol and all of that testing, and that does affect your contribution to your insurance premiums. Like if that's good, you get a big
You
employers.
wear two Apple Watches simultaneously, Jennifer? That's amazing.
I don't wear any Apple Watches. I wear other
Oh,
devices. I have a Whoop and an
okay.
Aura, but because I wanted to forum test because one was giving me bad results. Turns out they both do. But anyways, that said, but they're already doing that. So the employer themselves doesn't have access to that, but and it should be aggregated, but the insurance companies do. Clearly, that's what it's for. And then will your employer start getting into that? Yeah, interesting question, but it'd be dicey as hell if they did start getting, because if they start doing a lot of employers actually don't want that information, because if they want to do any layoffs, they're setting themselves up
Exactly.
for right, yeah, for retaliation claims. So we actually don't want that.
So I can
Is
speak
Yeah.
it
on this a
getting
little
close to
bit.
somewhere like the social credit score, like this whole in China where you're denied certain things based on that score? I mean, is it not? I don't know.
Well,
You're making me think that way.
maybe your
I
little
can,
electric e-scooter won't start if you have too much alcohol in your blood.
Well,
yeah. So one thing.
but they already have those too, breathalyzers on cars for people who've been convicted of
Remember,
DUIs.
What
Right?
insurance
about
industry is already doing it, right?
functional alcoholics? What about functional alcoholics? People that experience higher productivity through alcohol. Like Dave and I are probably in that category. Although I'm on a hiatus from drinking right now. Is the Balmer Peak, Tyler? Do you know the Balmer Peak?
No, what is that?
Look up XKCD Balmer Peak because basically, yeah, and then it explains itself.
Remember, car
And just
insurance
to be clear,
companies
Greg is
actually.
asking for a friend, not for himself, obviously.
Yeah. So one thing
I
I was going
mean,
to
look,
mention was
That
the
I'm.
I'd
employer
rather have a
side,
bottle in
since
front of me than a frontal lobotomy. And
Oh my gosh,
whether it's
there's a
professionally or socially speaking, having a couple of drinks every evening it makes one's family palatable.
Who said
there's a
that?
That was Jonathan. That's my friend Jonathan, GM of Circom, folks. I love it, Jonathan.
there's actually a film kind of around that concept that's out now with Mads Mikkelsen. It's called Another Round, and it's quite good. The storytelling is excellent. But it's around keeping your blood your alcohol blood level at 0.5% for maximized performance. So,
Hopefully, point
You
It's
have
oh
a lot of
five.
good movie recommendations.
totally brilliant. That movie is absolutely brilliant. And those guys, it doesn't end so well, but it's totally brilliant.
They're
I
doing a
got to
lot, a
point.
lot
so
for the top
0.5% is like
teams
a
at the moment in
beer
the
every hour
UK.
and a half.
I think it
Oh,
goes back to data privacy and data
no,
sharing.
Yeah.
Well, and,
So
and the
.05,
imp,
point oh
the impl,
0.05.
the
So
implications for.
specifically about the employer, sorry, this is Danish. Just a quick point about the employer, because we work with employers at my company and we handle healthcare data. So one, the belief that your employer cannot get access to this information, even indirectly, is absolutely wrong. So we know that they can. There's a lot of risk management work that happened in the last 5 to 10 years, especially now. There's actually an entire company called Transparent. If you guys look into it, you're going to be like, holy crap, I can't believe this exists. But that is the entire process of building a new third-party administrator completely based on your healthcare data, and thinking about workers' comp, thinking about behavioral data, thinking about even some of these practices. I think there's going to be a lot of work in this space to try to limit this, but this huge amount of data that's coming, they're using intermediaries to actually handle this. That's number one. Number two, CGM, according to a lot of physicians, for employees especially, could be a complete game changer. So what Tyler, you were mentioning earlier, I think a lot of physicians are extremely excited about the data that we're getting back from CGM. There's a huge company called Dexcom, but it's not non-invasive. That's why this is so exciting, because this is completely non-invasive. This technology is really exciting for us. And then,
So,
I'm
Danish,
sorry.
this is Greg up here.
Hey,
I
Greg.
wonder what you think about this. Basically, the only reason we're even talking about this and worrying about it is because of the giant companies in the space that are making the moves. Because we should have a market economy for healthcare and health insurance, and we don't. It gets locked up in these strange large corporation agreements. Why should it? Like, this is the company town at work. Like, again, these companies are treating the employees like they're assets and compensating them with health care. Come on, like,
Thank
might
you,
as well
thank
only
you,
allow
Greg.
them to
Thank you,
spend.
Greg. Thank you, Greg,
Exactly.
for this
Might
because
as
like
well only allow them to
nobody
spend their bucks
remembers.
at the company store,
Yeah, no one
Like,
remembers the company store. I bring it up in the healthcare rooms, and like they like glance past it. I'm like, are we seeing the emergence of the company store right now? And they kind of like don't know what I'm talking about. They kind of think I'm talking about a store that sells company merchandise. But
yeah.
Greg, you're right on, man. Load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older
Exactly.
and deeper in debt.
Deeper in debt. That's exactly right. We have songs about this from people who are smarter than us.
Yeah, let me
The
add
top,
another
the, the
really
banks in
interesting
London
point.
at the moment, like the banks, like one, like Lloyd's Banking Group, the top team, get on a big coaching program, and this is publicly available. But those guys are on a big program, and they're also like strapped up to all this stuff, and it basically like they're given readouts weekly on sleep, alcohol, blah 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 blah. So what is like they're it's kind of seen as a perk for that top team at the moment. I mean, yeah. Anyway, just a small
So
data point
Yeah,
into
this
it.
is John. Let me just say one thing because I got to run to my day job. Sorry, I got
go
like
ahead,
three
John.
minutes. Yeah, real quickly. I gave a talk about this like 7 or 8 years ago on what if you play this go out for a couple of business cycles, and you think about what is the societal value of insurance? It's distributing risk and indemnifying against, catastrophic circumstances economically. And if you look at what you can do with risk stratification with these wearables, it can drive things in two very polar opposite directions. One is it can incentivize people to live healthier lives. That would be really amazing. The other thing it could do is it could micro segment the populations into those who can afford insurance and those who cannot,
Absolutely.
and end up with a very large lower socioeconomic class already that can no longer and get some, third, fourth
Absolutely.
tier care. Yeah, so these are polar opposites. So the magic of managing the future in this space is how do you incentivize the proper use to motivate good, healthy habits or health outcomes, as the marginalization and the exclusion of people who can't afford insurance. This is John. I got to run to my day job. Thanks, guys.
John, I want to talk about this with you sometime because what we need are public-private partnerships like we had in the past.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
but not what we have right now. What we have right now is some kind of absurd Frankenstein monstrosity that
Oh, it
has gotten
is.
out of control. And so I would
Totally.
love to talk about this with you specifically in another room sometime.
If you
I
want
would
to
I
do
would
that
love
room,
that.
please ping me in. John, that was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah,
If I can
Florian,
mention one
thanks.
thing, if I can mention one thing about that, this is David. In 2011, I had a contract with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and Kaiser Permanente. We built an obesity management app for them. And Aetna and Humana were very active in this space. In fact, we launched it at a conference that was held in DC called Health Data Palooza. That was probably about 3 or 4 thousand people that were there. And this was a very prominent space. It really, it was big. And Health 2.0, Health Data Palooza, there was a lot of national conferences around this. And Aetna and Humana were very into it. In fact, if you look, Humana had an incubator focused on this exact space for about 7 years and shut it down around 2017, 2018. In particular about the data, there's an act called the GINA Act, GINA, that specifically prohibits the use of genomic data for insurance underwriting. However, it doesn't apply to chemistry, traditional biometric data, and especially when you get to things like behavioral biometrics, it doesn't apply to that. So genomic is off limit, but all these other factors that are open to use in underwriting. Thank you,
And
David.
I'll try not to completely derail this conversation, but there is a public-private partnership approach. Unfortunately, it has been completely overtaken by the same awful incumbents. And I will say this. So Medicare Advantage is one of those public-private approaches. In fact, if you talk to most providers and even most people that have been in the healthcare field for a long time, they'll say Medicare Advantage for all would be the best way to go because it is a public-private partnership on the insurance side. The challenge
Not
is
really.
the way it was set up. I'm sorry? Sorry, somebody said something. Okay. The main point is that the reason why it's a public-private partnership and the reason why it has been successful has been that it kind of forced us to think about how do we actually have less adverse outcomes because people were paid not only in a value-based care way at some level, but more importantly, people were paid more for sicker patients, which then aligned the providers with the payers. The one challenge with Medicare Advantage has been that it has now become a complete crapshoot in this last year and a half, especially because of COVID. And what we've seen is that a lot of these companies, and I'm going to name some companies that some people like, and I don't care, honestly, if you like them, because they're actually hurting, I think, in the long run. City Block MD, some of these companies that are claiming to be managed care organizations, that are doing quote unquote good work, the way that they're making money is actually kind of messed up. So when you have a patient and you can start putting 80 different diagnoses on them, you actually get paid more by Medicare for that
Yep.
patient. And that's how they're really making money.
Dr.
Yeah.
D,
And
I
everything's a
set up a
COVID.
Medicare. I set up a Medicare billing system for my wife, and we also figured out that when she bills Medicare and they pay out the hourly rate that they say that they're paying out, you have to do so many hours of work to work with them that your effective hourly rate gets like quartered. So she was working for like $20 an hour as a PhD
Yeah, which is
psychologist when it
crazy.
came to Medicare patients. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts, and it's exactly the example of what happens when you let the government run amok.
Absolutely. And so, what's really crazy is that as we're looking at all of this, there's two sides to something called what we really call the medical loss ratio. I kid you not. Medical loss ratio is what the insurance company makes minus the loss they have from actually delivering care. All right. And the
Amazing.
approach that they're taking over value based care has been, hey, we're going to rate this patient as complex as possible, even if, by the way, they might not actually be as complex. You just have to prove it that they are very, very complex. And then we're going to spend as little as possible to take care of that complex patient. And so value based care is value for the payer. And that's where we've messed up. This is Danish, and I'm done speaking.
Yeah, it's always great to hear you talk about this in particular.
There is another issue. This is when I was with managed care, especially in a post-acute care. When you have a patient, they really, not all of them, but some of them, and I'm not going to name any insurance, they put profit before patients' care. And for example, you have a patient before whatever happened, they end up to the hospital. They were able to have independently living in a community. But when they come to the post-acute for therapy, unfortunately, before they get to back to that level, they cut their insurance benefit. And to be honest, I don't recommend to my family or loved one or a friend, if you're getting to the certain age, choose traditional Medicare. I mean, choose managed care over traditional Medicare.
Doug, I saw you raised your hand. You're an RN. Are you able to join us for a comment on stage? And welcome back. Mitt, if you had a quick comment, we could do kind of 30-second shot clocks before we go into the next topic for those who wanted. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, Tyler, I wanted to bring up a quick one.
Yeah.
Basically, for those that don't know how Walmart operates, if you work for Walmart, they have contracted out with the best of the best. So if you have a heart condition, they're flying you to Cleveland Clinic. If you have you name the condition, they've figured out who does it the best, and they're now taking their employees and sending them to these specialists. So I think you're going to see a lot more innovation in this space. I mean, it's a $4 trillion industry, and
Chris,
it's
is
just
that
getting worse and
for
worse.
frontline employees too? Or is that
It
just
is.
kind of corporate? Is that
It
limited?
is.
I'm just curious.
So
It's for
the
It's
answer
everyone.
is I can
it's
answer that. So
everybody,
yeah, it's
I
everybody.
think.
So exactly.
Oh wow. Okay,
Uh,
that's good.
so the company that they're working with, I'll even give, that's a good shout out to a good company called Contigo Health. So Contigo Health, Jonathan Slotkin actually wrote a really good HBR article, Cal, for you to check out on this. And so specifically, the Center of Excellence model is kind of a game changer. And I think that it's something that's happening across most of the large organizations today.
Thanks. Thank you, Dinesh. It's
Can I?
great having you in this conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
Can yeah yeah. Greg was mentioning the other day about Amazon getting into the health insurance industry,
Yeah.
and this segue into that too from for Apple? I don't know what's.
Well,
I mean,
above
yeah, Greg has been talking all the time, but I'd like to hear what he has to say about.
Amazon, it would be really interesting to hear Dr. Dinesh and there's a few others on the Amazon's ambitions in the space, and Google does.
Danish and I have talked about this a little bit,
Yeah.
and I think you can basically assume, like the way that these companies think about things is when you talk with their CEOs, they just think that health is an important space, and then once they decide that, they invest billions and billions and billions of dollars into it in whatever way that they possibly can to see what sticks, but they do it with their own personal philosophies. And I would say that you couldn't find a different personal philosophy than either Jeff Bezos or Andy Jassy compared to Tim Cook, where Tim Cook's is actually far more psychopathic.
So you don't think this is going to segue into that? I mean, like Jeff
I do
Bezos
think it,
versus Tim Cook.
I mean, without being able to reveal Apple's product roadmap, which I had, some knowledge of, quite a bit of knowledge in the past. What I would say is that if you think, if you think of one of these areas, these companies have more money than they know what to do with, and then they start doing things that they don't know how to do. But they do it because the area of health is so big, you can't ignore it. If they want to expand, they have to expand into these other areas because they can't sell more iPhones at this point. I mean, we all have one. And so unless you're like Jennifer and maybe you're wearing two, oh wait, no, it was an Ura. If you, you know, there's just, they have to do it because we aren't stopping them. So they have to, because they have to make more money. They can't stop growing. So what are they going to do? They look at other spaces and they go, I wonder what I could do there. And so you could basically look at it as manifest destiny. Whatever you think that they might be working on, they probably are.
Yeah. So barring differences in philosophy, it's the money incentive that's making
So
it
Yeah,
work.
So
Thank
really
exactly.
quickly on Amazon. So Amazon is thinking about the problem, just so everybody else is up to speed. The way that they're thinking about the problem, to Greg's point, is they're actually looking at actual care delivery, which is okay because they're improving access to care at some level. But they're thinking about it from a business perspective. I love one or two things about them. I hate one or two things about them. So I'll just tell you what I love, and maybe you can ask me what I hate later. But what I love about them is that they're actually taking a triage approach. So they're always matching the patient with the most convenient care delivery model. Think of Amazon. That's what they're good at. They recommend, hey, do a telehealth appointment instead of having to go into the doctor. Or we'll send a nurse to your house instead of sending a doctor to your house. Or if you really, really need it, maybe we'll send a doctor to your house. So that's how they're thinking about that triage
Well, Dr.
approach.
D, like
Yeah,
you and I would both agree. I agree with you 100%. And by the way, I'm excited to talk with you about this because you and I have also seen these companies start beta testing on their own employees. And so I
exactly.
think without me saying anything in particular about where I think things are going, I will say that when I worked at Apple, I had better healthcare than I can get right now
Yeah,
myself, and I have a
Yeah,
lot of money, a
yeah.
lot of money. I don't know, I don't, I might, in most clubhouse rooms that I'm in, I have more money than everybody by 10 times. And I can't get the good healthcare that I could get at Apple through customized, I could like
oh
pick
yeah,
up a phone and get
were you there when they
it.
had crossover, Greg?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and so, but even more than that, it's bespoke stuff that you can't afford unless you're $1 trillion company to negotiate
Exactly.
for and get.
Yeah.
And then guess what? You start looking at this and you start looking at your interest in the health space, and you go, maybe I'm good enough to do this for the whole world. But the problem is that you basically run your company like a socialist country, and so now. Well, you can do the math, I think.
So here, speaking of the math on healthcare, the Wall Street Journal just reporting a few minutes ago, digital healthcare startups raised $7 billion in the past 3 months, the highest in a decade. Potential corporate customers say some services are overpriced and redundant. As investors pour money into health startups, customers press for price breaks and streamlining. We are inundated, is the quote. Um, so that I think that puts a cap on it for now. There's a bunch of other articles to dive into. For example, on the fintech space, Financial Times and others reporting that more than 30 of Europe's largest banks and credit card processors form the European Payment Initiative (EPI), aiming to compete with a U.S.-dominated oligopoly. More than 30 lenders designing designing rival to take on PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and Apple, more than 30 of Europe's largest banks. I wanted to pause there because one thing we haven't done notably today is let people chime in with their favorite headlines from wherever they happen to be. And that's personally my favorite part of what we do here. And that's kind of a room reset as we are now at the top of the hour here at Tech News Around the World. And we are still now by a very wide margin the number one room in Clubhouse for English at the moment. And thanks to everybody as we watch the room grow each day in both time zones, which is fantastic. And part of the secret sauce is, as you can see on stage, it's I call me biased, but if you know of a room with better, more insightful speakers on a regular basis, please let me know, because I want to send this audience there when this room closes, because we need more awesome rooms in this in Clubhouse, and I encourage people like Todd, who does awesome rooms. And that's one thing we're starting to do here, by the way, is if you click on the title of this room, you'll see the Tech News Club, and on the Tech News Club, you'll now see the agenda if you have of the upcoming rooms, and you'll notice we're starting to do a crypto room, which is coming up, and an AI room, and maybe we need to start doing medtech rooms, which Dr. Dinesh and others would be fantastic to run those, and we will.
I think that would be such
Yeah,
a
would love
brilliant
to.
idea.
Yeah, and we would
Yeah,
love to
Dr.
set
Dinesh
what
and
we
team.
would do is we run this room essentially for 2 hours each day. We would then send at the conclusion of this room, say, guess what? This room ends, but you don't have to go home. We're going to all head over to Dr. Dinish's room where he's got, and we would just take advantage of the traffic, and rather than just shut the whole bar down, we just can pass it
Yeah,
on. Yeah.
can I just say I've been the recipient of this one time, and you should really know what Pandora's box you are opening, because Tyler, I did not appreciate what you do here, managing my tiny little rooms beforehand, and then you shot all the people in, and it was like it was basically like being plugged directly into the Matrix. So clap for your moderators, folks.
Yes. Yeah. But
No, but I could feel your anxiety as they all popped in there. It was like, oh boy, they're all coming
It
in.
yeah,
it
but
turned it turned very, very interesting, and
yeah,
I think it's a good strategy that you're doing here, because it kind of keeps the conversation rolling through
right.
different topics, but with the same kind of tenor of
Right.
conversation.
Right, but what the reason we're doing this is because this is my own personal thing. Maybe you feel the same. I want to see Clubhouse having lots of great conversations happening all the time for intellectually curious folks like ourselves who join here each day,
Exactly.
and we need more of that, not less of it. And so it's not a matter of people competing. It's I sincerely want somebody to make a room that follows this room that we can join afterwards, because
You're doing God's work, Tyler, and
it,
I appreciate it, if you
it,
get my meaning.
I do, yeah. So, but that's why I say
People
to
people get paid.
say again.
People should get paid because you, for example, and was the cryptocurrency Amy
Yeah,
and Greg here
yeah,
and Michael are holding their own, and they're like here for 4 hours a day,
yep,
at least some kind of an honoraria.
yeah,
I mean, a pay me button, right?
yeah,
That should be for these people,
yeah.
for
But
you and
they're starting to do that more, so I'm
Bitcoins.
hopeful that the mods will get that, and then I think sponsorships will be coming in soon as well. And so for the people who are in it for the money, hopefully they'll get the
Oh,
money
thank
that they.
God.
Yeah. But
I need
Tyler,
to
how
wet
do
my
you not
beak.
have a pay me button, Tyler? How
I
do you? Oh, because it's not
exactly.
because you're not in the U.S.
no,
What is that?
that might be
Thailand
why.
is
I'm not
Even
sure.
even even lowly me has one, and I'm not saying it because I
Yeah.
want to get paid, but I've had it for like a month.
I honestly
I
it's
prefer.
US only at the moment.
I honestly prefer it that way, so that it's,
For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you
yeah,
too can help Greg Duffy eat.
yes. So anyway,
Tyler, I'd just like to say something.
yeah,
I dropped out of college 6 years ago while I was doing a startup,
yeah.
and I think I've learned so much from your room that I don't miss college anymore. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for doing
Oh,
this.
Here,
thanks.
here.
Well, you're one of my favorite new voices here on stage, so it
Oh,
makes
so you're giving up your place at Stanford then, or was it
No, not
Harvard?
yet, Carl. Not
University?
yet, not
You,
yet.
oh, you're not doing that yet. You're
well,
not doing
Cal,
that.
Cal, we
Okay.
can start competing with Stanford. This is our new business model right here. Yeah.
Yeah, and on tips, just give
Yes.
us $1
Just on
a day.
tips. Yeah.
That's good.
Anyway, but a huge thanks to everyone, because I'm noticing that my friends, so I have many friends who moderate rooms, and I'm watching that the audience's numbers are dwindling a bit in many rooms, and the fact that ours are going in the other direction is very encouraging indeed. But let's take advantage of it and pass that momentum on to folks each day, because we do this twice a day. That means we have 10 different times a week that we could pass the audience on. So Dr. Dinesh, I'm going to contact you to see if you could be one of those. And like Todd, Todd, please take advantage and schedule rooms following this one.
And just the
Etc.
clarity on
Yeah.
that, you can do both options. You can either spin it off as a subgroup of
Right.
tech news if you
Right.
wanted to do, or if
Yep.
you've got your own club
Yep.
that you're wanting to have that. So
Yep.
yeah,
We're
all
not
good.
even precious about that. Exactly. This is more about benefiting the ecosystem and paying it forward. So to prove the sincerity of that point. Yeah, this isn't a self-serving interest. It's more of a collectively. This is a co-creation effort. I even like the idea that people, if you like this format, but we are starting to talk with Monica about doing the Indian Tech News, Tech News India and Tech News Canada with Heyman, and but if other people do it under their own umbrellas and for China, whatever, it's all gravy. Just I would love to see more engaging, thought-provoking content for the intellectually curious crowd here in Clubhouse. So let's keep that in mind. But on that point, if you do have a headline from your part of the world, that's one of our.
Tyler,
Go ahead, Dave.
Tyler,
line,
can
but
I
I
say
wanted to
something
go back
quickly?
to
Tyler,
Yeah.
I would like to say something. I mean, I go to different rooms with different language. I love this room, and I just make sure I come and visit. I think the moderator makes a lot different. It's a voice platform, and whoever has the green button and sitting up there, it just to keep people engaged and bringing issues or topic that it helps everybody to learn. It's a huge responsibility, and I just want to thank you. You're doing a great job. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah,
here.
that's my clap for you.
And I wanted to go back to where we started.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
So right at the start, we went to Cheryl talked to us about the lovely concept of the cherry blossom in her part of the world, and I just have a really nice imagery of like, our buddies sitting around and like just kind of thinking of that. Like I personally am reminded of the book of Ecclesiastes. There's a time to be born and a time to die, and like a time to kind of celebrate our buddies. So it's not a headline, Tyler, but I just wanted to track back to where we started. I thought it was a really nice start to this room.
Sure. Thank you for that, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Taylor?
Yep.
Can I come in with a bit of news, please?
Yeah, please do, Kai.
I just run back as fast as possible because we have ghastly wind and rain in England. So
Okay.
I just run away from the golf course back to my car to be able to share this wonderful news with everybody. Has anybody mentioned about the Reddit island? I found it fascinating.
No, please go ahead.
On Reddit, and fans on Reddit have proposed to actually buy a private island.
I've been talking about this for a while, actually.
Oh, really?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Now that it's out in the open, yeah.
So one of my favorite actor called Keanu Reeves is reputable, allegedly going to be voted the governor of the island, and for as little or as much as $2,600 US, you can be a part owner of this island. So that you can then go to be the proud member of special Reddit club, and to actually have holidays and of course more clubhouse in real life on this island. I find that fantastic. Of course, Reddit notably is also developed their own version of Clubhouse. So I find it in a kind of like a very divided age as we live now. It's actually quite nice to actually for an independent island across different cultures and across different religions, and for people with similar ideas to actually come together. I think that may have some implication to how this room is going to develop into the future. So that's where I will stop, and hopefully that will inspire some discussion. I'm done.
Yeah, this is a huge topic potentially of, for example, like China, we were talking about earlier, where China is making islands in the South China Sea near off the coast of the Philippines, where if somebody were to make it, by the way, Thailand has 1,000+ islands. Burma, Myanmar has also 700-ish islands. If they would sell one of those, or if somebody created a new sand-based island somewhere, where it would have its own autonomous ability to make its own laws, because the whole blockchain, Bitcoin specifically, is interesting to focus on, because it's now starting to become more clear that governments are accepting of Bitcoin as long as they control all the on-ramps and off-ramps, so they can see everything that's going on those blockchains and tax everybody accordingly. But that means it's no longer fully decentralized, essentially, and it kind of ruins the original decentralized vision of Bitcoin. So some of those diehard decentralized folks are not giving up without a fight, and there's the ambitions to do a modern day blockchain Monaco, where, because honestly, Bitcoin is really just step one of a grander plan, where after your finances are decentralized, the next step is that your data, similar to the medical data conversation we were talking about, is, if imagine that your own identity imagine a global blockchain of identities, where we as global citizens all say, actually, this is my real identity, and it's proven, and that's the point of the blockchain, is it can prove things. And so if governments start accepting your blockchain identities, then the next stage above that is your data on top of your identity. So it's a very
To
ambitious.
put a fine
Yeah.
point on this,
Yeah.
Tyler, I really want to turn my Bitcoin into a bigger yacht than my friend Vladislav has. But it's really hard to do this without incurring a lot of tax,
Yes.
because, and including property taxes and all, or income taxes if I try to turn it into cash. And by the way, the problem keeps going. And so your point about the on-ramps and off-ramps is a really succinct way to say this, but I can't have a bigger yacht than my friend Vladislav using my Bitcoin, because of this problem. And that's really the trick that these people are trying to pull now, is like, well, now what can we do to make that problem go away? We're going to go build islands or something. But I think that islands are really susceptible to navies.
Yep.
So until you can build a Nimitz class
Yep.
destroyer or something like that, you're really you're not in good shape.
Yeah, you're asking for trouble. But on this point here, we had an interesting conversation or realization in the last time zone around the data point, because here's where this gets interesting: is originally you had Edward Snowden blew the whistle globally that America specifically was monitoring all of its citizens without their knowledge or consent, and America was not unique in this regard. Essentially, governments everywhere have backdoors into your devices, and they're using that data willy-nilly, and that it started there, and that sort of whet their appetite around the power of data. And now they are doing the same with the facial recognition data, which adds a face to your mobile device as you walk around town, and all of the cameras. There's a headline that just broke in the past 24 hours on Bloomberg in the political section. The title is, "In Moscow, Big Brother is watching and recognizing protesters." Facebook has, the facial recognition system in Russia is being used now against the protesters, which is very concerning, and that's clearly one of the dystopian use cases that we would all worry about when the state adds in the facial recognition controls. And I invited Charles to join us, so hopefully he can jump in and add his 2 cents here. As a co-founder of the Americans version of the facial recognition system. China has what they call SenseTime. America has Clearview. The Israelis have one that they sell to other countries, and Russia has their own, etc. But now that the governments have the facial recognition data, which also ties into your cell phone data, that's cause for concern. But it gets worse, because there's now reports from the New York Times and others that China is doing DNA data on their citizens, and they're using U.S. technology to do it, as the New York Times is reporting. And that's very concerning, because now it goes from your cell phone, smartphone data to your facial recognition data, which ties you and all of the cameras all over the place to that data, and now your DNA data, which again adds a whole interesting can of worms that we could debate here, given
I've got
yeah.
an anecdote about
Go
this
ahead.
that's relevant, which is, like, after we were acquired by Google, we had this problem with Dropcam where we wanted to do AI, but we didn't want to be exposed to customer data. So we were really careful about not using more inbound video than YouTube. By orders of magnitude was the data that we had. And I was like there, sitting there going, no, 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 holding everybody back from learning on that data in ways that would destroy user privacy, because I thought that was one of our primary goals. Then the moment that we got into Google, everything changed. And in particular, one day I walked into the office and there was a drop cam and it said, "Hello, Greg." And I realized that one of our engineers had actually, in about I don't know, 72 hours of feverish work post acquisition, not only use the infrastructure that Google has, but also the data that Google has, and in this case, restricted to Google employees, but easily could have been done otherwise, to do one-shot learning in a way that we didn't have the resources to do as a small company, and using some of the pre-trained models and stuff like that. And literally anybody who walked in front of the camera from any angle, side face, front face, wearing a mask, doesn't matter. It could suddenly identify you. Now imagine what governments can do.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And by the way, one thing to add about the genetic data. So it's really sad, and I hate to say this out loud and calling out another health system, but Kaiser Permanente just backed Q Bio. Are you guys familiar with that? Have you guys already discussed that
No,
today?
what is that?
Okay. So Q Bio uses MRI type imaging, magnetic resonance imaging, to get a quote unquote baseline on patients, and then ties that with all of their other medical record data to actually build a digital twin on patients. And people don't know this, or maybe they do, but Kaiser Permanente is not just a healthcare provider. They're also an insurance company.
Right.
So they're an integrated health system.
Yep.
And this is the scariest thing that's happening in the industry with Optum and OptumRx and, connected to United Healthcare, obviously. As you're thinking about this integrated and vertical integration, this data problem that Greg keeps talking about that's happening in other areas is happening in front of our eyes, and we're doing nothing.
Exactly. The truth is out there. And you can hear it from Dr. Denish, and sometimes me.
Okay, that was funny.
That music is just too perfect.
I want to see a buddy comedy where Dr. Danish and I play the new X-Files agents and go around solving mysteries. That I would sign up. Michael Simpson Jr., and he's not in the room, maybe he could produce.
Yeah, so this Bloomberg article, I got to tweet it. It's too good. It says officials hailed Moscow's massive facial recognition camera network as a benign aid to residents that would enforce quarantine restrictions, catch criminals, and even let them pay subway fares. Well, that's handy. Now it's being deployed to crush dissent against against Vladimir Putin. Please tap. What a turn of Quint. Now that's the script in your movie, Greg.
That was nobody suspected that.
Nobody saw that coming.
Nobody saw that coming.
Police tapped the surveillance system to identify and detain dozens of people who attended last week's protests in Russian capital in support of jailed Kremlin foe Alexei Navalny. More than 50 were picked up over the following days, including several journalists, according to an independent human rights monitoring group that gathers information on detentions. And
yeah, people haven't even done the math on this, Tyler, because it used to be that you could break the law a little bit, and now what we're going to find out is laws that you can't break because that you are automatically complied with them whether you want to or not. So you can't even skip a fare, and everybody's like, well, that's great because it's fair FAIR that nobody can do that, but you don't know why people do it. And so, yeah, I just think it's really scary but also just kind of reality that we're going to live in a world where you are actually incapable of breaking many laws. You're incapable because you're forced to comply even by direct debit of your bank account.
But isn't that why everyone on Star Trek behaves so nice most of the time on the Starship Enterprise?
I thought it was because they were all in those ridiculous jumpsuits and it constricted them like babies and made them feel nice and safe.
Like a swaddle.
Yeah.
Like a swaddle, exactly. That's the word I was looking for.
Thing is, Tyler, I think in some countries, 60% of the jobs are government, right? So imagine in certain countries like dictatorship countries and how young people, they get recognized through these facial recognition, softwares, and then they apply for jobs. They could be automatically, be doxxed from these kind of jobs. So I think this is
don't worry, Kiran. What everybody thinks about this technology is that it will only be used for the best possible intentions and the desires of the current people in power, and could never be corrupted by future people in power.
I'll give you a great example of that. I used to live in Singapore. It's like 10 years ago. And for those of you who haven't been there, the government has built most of the housing. It's called the HDB, Housing Development Board. It's fantastic. It's actually made many of the Singaporeans dollar millionaires on the back of the development in the country. At every single of these houses, they installed cameras at the entrance and at the exit and everywhere for safety of its citizens, of course. But I think it was Israel who sent in like some Mossad agents that nabbed some person in Singapore, and Singapore was able to follow that person, these Mossad agents, every single step of the way. This is 10 years ago. So mind you, this is not science fiction or something. So again, the US and the UK, that's like they're developing this stuff, and to some extent it's rolled out, but Singapore's had it rolled out for a long time.
So this is a very
So it's already here.
Yeah, well, there's a perfect headline that literally broke in less than an hour ago from Nikkei Japan, reporting that leading Japanese companies will end their use of Chinese-made drones, joining in the government's effort to curb the potential security risks of the cameras and these drones, these Chinese drones. So it's America did the same. They banned DJI in America, the leading drone manufacturer in China. And now Japan is doing the same. And that leads us to Leon, our Chinese American friend, who has a headline to share from Harvard Business Review, the title of which is Americans Don't Know How Capitalist China Is, which is absolutely true. As an American who lives outside of the US, America is totally clueless about how capitalistic China is. It's a special form of Chinese capitalism, but it's wildly capitalist in some sense. Leon, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So, I have a lot of heated debate. Like I said, my second worst personal attack I enjoyed from this room. I mean, that was fun, but that was a little bit of stress for me. So I want to reduce that by share this time. This really like for the purpose of PSA, public service announcement. I think we are not on the same page, right? If you look at the facts, I mean, even you have a different opinion. I think what this article said, I would say probably more than 50% are correct, in my opinion. I mean, I believe it's more than 70%. Probably, if Americans, let's say 100% Americans, because like I said, my family is 75% American, 25% Chinese. Take a leave it. But anyway, so if you guys look at this, if you don't trust me, you don't trust the Harvard Business Review, don't trust the author, just look at data. I think 50% of the conclusion probably still hold. So with that being said, really, my friend like Roy, who run the China Club, said all the time, don't think Chinese government as a CCP government. It's the biggest company in the world, and all the companies from China, doesn't matter state-owned or private, they're subsidiary of a Chinese, that's called a China company. That's how it works.
China
So,
Inc. It's my
China
favorite book.
Inc.
I actually
Yeah,
Read the
agree with
book
this,
China
Leon.
Inc. It's the best. It's the
Well,
best.
yeah.
first of all, I'm going to jump to my friend Leon's defense. Nobody should personally attack him because he's well-meaning, and I actually find him interesting. But the like Americans don't know when they're pulled because they view capitalist as a very positive word, and they don't have a very positive view on China. And so, look, every country has dumb people, and a lot of them actually. And so the problem is when they hear the word capitalist and they say, is China capitalist? They're like, no, because they think of capitalism as being near and dear to their hearts and paired with other ideals like human rights. And so they don't want to let any ground when somebody says that China is capitalist. But I actually think that for us thinking people, we know that China is a ruthless capitalistic country, and actually in a way that I disagree with because I like human rights and all these other things that go along with, I think, good capitalism. But this is a
So,
phenomenon that exists, Leon, and the reason that it exists is because the people that you're polling don't want to admit anything good about China, where China is actually a mixture of good and bad. It's just not the mixture of good and bad that I agree with, and I don't think anybody else should either.
I would
yeah,
add that.
the funny thing is like, thank you, Greg. So that's why I say Greg's my brother from different parents. It truly is, truly
Brother from
is.
another mother.
Brother from another mother.
Well, they've also bundled it with democracy. They don't understand that they're two separate things. So that's another something,
Yeah,
within the United
yeah.
States.
The flag
Yeah, I
wavers in
mean,
Three wolves
America,
and a
they
lamb voting on what to eat, right?
yeah, the flag wavers in
exactly. So another thing
America,
is like,
their heart is in
in
the
the
right
end,
place, but their brains aren't, for sure. Yeah.
exactly.
I,
So
I,
another thing, like someone just shared a positive news about Singapore, right? Like this is centralized surveillance system, which is also applied, has been implemented in China as well. I mean, in China, the reason people are so comfortable to walk on like Shanghai, any corner, 3 a.m. in the morning, because the safety is so good. Why is so good? The
Yeah.
cameras everywhere.
Well,
It's
and
everywhere.
it's like 5 million people, Leon.
Yes,
It's
but
like 5 million people, and they all went there because they agreed on some shared ideals. So it's a little bit easier
Mhm.
to manage.
but
But
it's
I
not
would
the
also
it's
say
not
that
the
like
cameras that keeps them in line. It's what happens after the
exactly,
cameras that keeps them in line. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly
yeah, I know,
the
I know.
corporal punishment for
Yeah,
bubble gum.
so now then the people are talking about democracy, right? I always like democracy. You know, I always quote Lee Kuan Yew, right? Lee Kuan Yew said that in Hong Kong, 1992. Word by word, democracy is not necessary solution to progress. Singapore believed in this. And now look at what Singapore got right now. I just checked, you know, I know Cheryl told me so many times. Singapore have an Indian president. I looked into this. To be more specific, Singapore have a woman Muslim Indian as a president. Think about it.
Well,
Singapore is a Chinese majority.
wait,
But
Leon.
Singapore is a small
Is it
country,
Sonali?
But
very
no,
small. So
Is it
how
so?
could you compare it to
Well,
India?
but
but
Leon,
also like
we are only 4 years away from an Indianish president, a female Indian president in America as well, very
Yeah,
likely.
yeah, that's right.
correct.
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
Maybe even
Kamala.
tomorrow if Biden doesn't drink his coffee this morning.
Well,
Exactly.
be
2
careful.
months.
She's actually across between India and the Caribbean. So I think
Oh,
Even
you
better.
say she can
a
solve
lot
all
of
the
people will
problem, right?
fight
Then
for
you're
that
gonna be the number one in
association
terms of
there.
progression
He's
in the
talking
world.
about my
But
daughter.
can
He's talking
we
about my
can we
daughter, Anushka.
Very
What
yeah,
the
diverse.
heck?
Cal's Anushka for president. I would support this.
Absolutely, that's what she wants
But
to do. So,
Woo!
and
You
she's a
Leon,
get my
citizen.
vote, Kyle. You
And
got
she's
my
a
vote as
citizen.
well.
You know, she's half Indian, she's half
here's a meta
English.
issue that I would like to point out, which is Leon, the reason that you get a lot of pushback from me, and it's friendly pushback, is because I am an expert at recognizing propaganda, and the US is very good at propaganda, and China is getting better and better at propaganda. So I've got to take out my
Thank you.
boxing
Thank you.
gloves,
That's very
and
important,
I've got
right?
to
That's how it works.
yeah, I've just got to like hammer it down with the sledgehammer of Greg Duffy, which is a pretty big sledgehammer, and I'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it every time I see the Chinese propaganda, because at the end of the day, that propaganda is supporting unfettered capitalism, and I don't want unfettered capitalism. I want capitalism with human rights, and including, you know, I have to bring up the Uyghur Muslims every single time we talk about this. I realize that you guys view it as a problem to be solved by genocide, and by you guys, I mean China. I don't know, Leon, what your personal views on this are. But I don't believe in genocide, and I don't believe in slavery. Even though these things happened in the past, and everybody was basically a slave, or and by the way, things are getting better and all that kind of stuff. I now don't think we need it anymore. It's not the way of modern humans. I want it to go away. I want people to be free and to be able to, you know, have that American dream. And I believe in manifest
So Greg, I
destiny
have
for
a comment
American
Greg,
short.
ideals
Greg,
beyond
Hey,
Greg,
just
Greg,
this is
Greg,
capitalism,
Greg,
Greg,
Greg.
beyond
So
Greg,
just capitalism.
stop right
Greg,
there, because that's not the
gu-
topic of this
guys, can
article.
everyone just
If
Greg,
you like
hang on? No, no,
just
no, no,
It
focus
no,
on
is.
the
no, no.
fly
Leon,
It's
in the,
related.
guys,
there
And
is
just
a
for the
fly.
record, why
guys, I
associate
have
Greg,
a
China with
question.
genocide? We don't have genocide in
Greg,
China.
say solve
Somebody ring
the
the bell.
racist problem in US first, Greg.
Well, yeah. Well, we are. We're the least
So
Greg, I
you
racist
have
know,
a
country in
question, brother.
existence.
Let me
Greg,
finish.
I've got a
If you have
question.
time, you
Well,
have a
Cheryl
time.
Leon,
addressed me. I was just saying, like, the
Oh, go
U.S. is
ahead.
the
So
least
whoever
racist country in
moderator is saying this,
existence.
I'll listen. If it's not a moderator, I don't give a
Tyler,
damn.
can I ask a question here, please?
Yes, but before we do,
Meyer.
I need to warn everybody. Most of the people, 90% on the people on stage knows that we are now in the third hour, and what that means is there's no more moderation. People get punched in the face. Greg, very no.
Greg's
Fantastic.
My
favorite
favorite
section.
time is here. My
No,
Let's
favorite
begin
Greg,
the
That's
time.
stabbing
Greg, you
review.
have
fantastic. I
to
came
What?
back
imagine.
just
I
in
was
time.
I
born.
Yes.
was
I
Let's
know,
all
right?
punch Greg at the
oh,
same time. Let's all punch Greg at the same
Let's
And
have a
there's
long
no
Hi.
time.
security
All
camera
right.
in this room.
I
This
Fantastic.
was
is
merely
wild. This is
adopted.
Where's the
Hey,
trouble.
I
listen,
was
needle?
born in
hey,
this.
listen.
I was
Hey, just
born
as
Hold
a
in.
on.
just as a point,
Hold.
just as a point, just on Tyler saying, you know, Leon knew what he's getting into. Come on, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people
Thanks,
who
Kyle.
want to come in and start facilitating at this point.
Right.
But you know, these two, let them handle it, right? Leon knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and I
So
know, you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, let's now stop this wonderful discussion because we were having it great. but he knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what this would provoke. He knew
Yes.
who he was on stage,
Yes.
right? He's an adult.
Yes.
He's an adult.
He's done it
Okay,
every
so
day for 2
yeah,
months. So don't,
yeah.
you don't need to
So
worry.
And
let him
he's
figure it
almost
out. And
invincible.
everyone else, and what generally happens, I'm just telling for the people that are new to the stage at this stage of the discussion, right? Which is a different phase.
Yeah.
Anyone who's new to the phase, just kind of, sit back, and they're adults, and trust
Enjoy
that
it.
Tyler,
Enjoy
trust,
bar fight,
wait,
Trust the process.
1 second, and trust that Tyler is not going to let anyone get victimized or all those kind of things. These are adults that brought it, that want to have that discussion.
Right.
So that's where we are on this.
Yes.
Hey, Leon, where
And
I have a problem, Leon, right? When it comes to genocide, I don't mind if China commits genocide inside its border. Where I have problem is that when it crosses the border and it feeds into Sri Lanka and Myanmar, first through
Kieran, what are
research.
you saying? Genocide inside their border? You
What?
don't
That's
mind that?
okay.
What are you saying, brother?
No,
So first of all, man, I'm gonna pick up that fight since you threw your glove on me.
Yeah.
Who gave this idea? China had a
No, no,
genocide
no,
in
no, no, no. We're
Xinjiang.
not
No, let me
grabbing you,
ask you.
Leon.
Let me ask
Leon,
you.
we're not grabbing you.
First of
I
all,
just want an answer on the Uyghur. I just want an answer
no,
on
the
the
Uyghur,
Uyghur
the Uyghur
Muslims.
thing. I want to
Everyone,
get your
everyone.
source. Please tell me source. Who tell you Uyghur has been genocide? Tell me
okay,
who gave
so
you the source.
so
Give me
Leon,
that. Give
Okay,
me
let's
that.
Leon,
not call it
Give me that.
genocide. Let's not call it
okay,
genocide. Hang
okay,
on.
Yeah.
Fraz.
Let's not call it genocide. Let's
No,
not call
Fraz,
it
let me.
genocide. Let's call
That
it.
word
Kieran, one
is
sec.
loaded. That's a word is a
Kieran, let me ask the
Western
question. Kieran,
propaganda.
let me ask the
Let's
question.
drop that word.
Leon,
Otherwise,
let me
this
ask the
conversation is
question.
useless.
Let me ask the
Okay. Yeah.
question.
Sure.
Leon, let me
Please.
ask the question.
Please, brother.
Let me ask the question. Forget the Western propaganda. Forget the Eastern propaganda. Forget everything. Okay. I know for a fact we've had people going from the Middle East visiting these Uyghurs in prisons, in prison cells, just for the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they are Uyghurs and they have been
Correct.
locked up for being Muslims. Can
Correct.
you answer to the fact as to why they're being locked up? With what basis they're being locked up on? Is it because they're Muslims? Is it because they're Uyghurs? Is it because somehow all of the Uyghurs have committed crimes? Just answer that question. Let's keep it plain and simple. Let's not call it genocide. Let's call it about an
Yeah.
entire portion of China that is by chance 100% Muslim being locked up. Let's answer that question
I
first.
don't think
Let's
that's
go there.
a statement
First,
of truth at
let me
all. I
answer.
mean,
Let me answer.
where do you
Kai,
get
let
the
me
proof
answer.
of 100%
Let Leon
Muslim in
answer.
China
Let Leon
getting
answer.
Let me
Let
try
Leon
that,
answer.
brother.
Let Leon answer.
I cannot.
Let
The
Leon
answer is
answer.
wrong. There's no such
God
thing.
damn it! Let
No,
Leon
no, let me
answer.
answer. It's okay. It's
Well, I
okay.
can
Did
It's
I
answer for
okay,
address
Leon
you?
as
brother.
well. Come on.
Did I address you?
This is
Did I
Hey,
no,
It's
no.
address
It
you?
okay.
Lionel,
doesn't
I can
matter.
handle
It doesn't
this.
matter. I'm not
Leon.
going to tolerate that. Well, who said that 100% of Muslim in Chinese prison? That's utter rubbish.
I spoke
Come
to
on.
Leon. Kai, I
No,
spoke
no,
to
Well,
no.
you can
Leon.
speak
Let me
for
answer
Leon,
that,
but I'm
Kai.
not going
Kai,
to allow
Leon's a
you
I
big
know
because
the
vet.
that is
fact.
Leon's
plain
an adult. He doesn't
lies.
need you to
Okay,
No, no,
that
no,
bodyguard
is
no,
him.
no,
plain
no,
lies.
no.
All
Okay,
right.
hang
He
on.
doesn't
Cannot,
Thank
need you to
you.
I
Thank
cannot
bodyguard
you.
Hold
listen
him.
to
on.
Thank
that.
you. Thank you
Okay.
for the support. Let me answer this because, brother, if you shout, people
Let
cannot
Leon answer me.
understand. Yes, yes.
Let Leon answer
For
me.
us.
Let Leon answer
So,
me.
there's actually a really nice
Thank you. Thank you,
article.
Leon.
Again, I read just a quote from the article. It's published in South China Morning Post. Again, I don't like, I don't like majority of Western media. I only trust very few of them. And this one was from South China Morning
Sure, brother.
Post.
And please, when I ask the
The
question, I'm not trying
key
to
fact is,
attack you.
first of all, your
I'm
question
not
is
trying to attack you.
all Muslims were locked up in China, which is absolute bullshit.
Oh,
You
so
know
it's
how
only
many
like what,
Muslims in
92%?
China? No, don't cut me off. Stay there. Put.
No, no.
You
Well,
don't
Exactly.
have
Utter
data,
bullshit.
shut up. If you don't have data, Greg, shut up. Okay? Even you're my
no,
brother.
never,
Greg, let
Leon.
him talk. Greg,
Fund
come
your
on.
fucking
Let's let
data
him
and
talk.
then talk to me, okay?
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
him
Yeah,
talk.
So
Let
let
him
me
Leon.
talk. Let him
Go
talk.
finish.
ahead.
Faraz,
Please let me
hold on.
finish.
Go
People
ahead.
don't want to waste your
Go
time.
Yeah.
ahead.
First of all, people say all the Muslims locked up in China. Do you know fucking clue how many Muslims in China? More
All
than
right, Leon,
20
talk.
million. Okay, number one. So that's wrong.
Okay.
Take it back.
All
So
right.
what's your second point?
Okay.
And guys, I need to point out one thing. Greg, you've
Hang
not
on.
tweeted anything about the crisis,
There's
and
too
neither
many
have you,
people
Faraz.
talking. I want to hear that again from Leon,
Sure,
guys.
sure. There's
Sure,
more than
Leon. What did?
20 million Muslims in China.
Okay.
People said we locked up all the Muslims. Where did you fucking fund we locked up 20 million people?
Okay.
Where are you
I'll
gonna build
say
this
I'm
fucking
wrong.
prison, right? So
All
go
right.
check your
First of all,
data. Come on, man.
hang on. First
That's
of all,
okay.
cut out
Thank
the
you.
profanity, man. I'm not swearing at you.
Yeah, I
I'm
know,
not
I know, I
swearing at
know.
you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
of course. My
Come
bad,
on.
my bad.
Let's
Sorry,
handle
sorry.
this like
mature men. Let's
Yeah,
handle
of
this like
course,
mature
of
men.
course, of
Okay?
course. That
All
was
right.
not to
So
you, brother.
then
That's
if
not to you. That's to like Greg. He's just a
I know,
gentleman.
I know, my friend. I know, my friend. Now tell me this: where does this come from that Uyghurs are being locked up? Why don't you explain it?
It's not
Let's
20 million,
talk to
it's
the
1
source.
million. It's 1 million.
Okay.
A
Okay, the
majority of
number
them
All
are
right.
changed,
reversed, which
right?
is
All of a
actually
sudden, number
they're
changed.
internment camps
Great,
without any legal
great, great,
process. They have no legal
great,
process.
great.
So
Okay,
like I
okay.
can
All
tweet
right.
So
this. Sure.
can I let me speak because I did a little bit research.
Yes.
So,
Okay, Leon.
based on
Go.
the article, there's a by various estimates. By the way, go to this article, South China Morning Post. They
Uh-huh.
just read from the article. By various estimates, Americans' war on terror was classified, claiming 500,000. Sorry, this is this guy
Yeah,
doesn't write
go
this
like
properly.
you got
Oh,
some
okay.
notes that
So
you're
in the
looking at
past
there?
40 years, let me finish this. It's very important.
Yeah.
In the space of 40 years, the
Directly by Telegram.
Uyghur population in Xinjiang grew from 5.5 million to more than 12 million. Okay, between 2010 2018, the Uyghur population increased by 25% compared to 2% for the Han
Okay.
population. This is addressed. People said Chinese are killing more Uyghur,
Hey, look, a
suppress their
distraction.
population. This is not true, right? So that's
It's
first one.
not nobody's even talking about that. You just did a
Of course,
tactic.
someone.
You just did a deliberate propaganda tactic, which is moving us from one
This is
topic
not
No,
to the
propaganda.
other.
no.
This is a propaganda against China.
It's just
It's all these
data. If you don't like
lies
the data, it's
alleging
propaganda. Then
Greg,
China
Greg,
brother,
No.
killed the
unfortunately,
Greg,
you have
brother,
a
millions of
I
Uyghurs.
problem.
agree
This is
with you.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I agree
Yeah,
with you.
Faraz, you
However,
know.
I know, brother.
Sorry,
Let's
I'm
come back
reading
to
really
let's come back
slow.
to our side. Let's come
Yeah,
back to
our
our
side. Let
side
me
in a
finish
second.
this. Let me finish it. Let's
Let
give
Leon
you
finish it.
interesting timeline. Let me finish the interesting timeline. The genocide idea. When did that happen? That happened. Mike Pompeo, the day after Trump knew he lost the presidency. That idea brought up.
Okay.
Was that
All right.
interesting to you guys? Why was that? That was a fucking
Okay.
desperate move because he knew he could
Okay.
not wait anymore. Let's do this
Okay.
out.
Now
Does
answer
that
me
make
this.
sense?
Answer me this. Whether it's one person, two persons, or actually forget the one person, two person. Let's say it's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. What's the basis of these individuals being locked up? Just answer that
This
question.
is this you're
No.
putting
Let me
allegation
finish it, Kai.
against
Let
I'm
me
them.
let
talking
me
to
This is
finish
very
Leon.
it.
I'm
rude.
talking to
Kai,
Leon.
Kai,
You're
Kai,
Shut your
following up
mouth.
with
I'm
Kai,
talking to
lies after
Kai,
lies,
Kai. It's
Paresh.
okay. It's
Come on,
okay. Kai,
it's
it's
not
okay.
okay.
Let me
It's
finish
not
this.
okay.
If
This
I
is propaganda against China. This is
but
totally
if
unfair.
but
What
Kai,
is
Kai,
one
if
person,
you
one
if you
million
shout
person
into
told
them, they
you?
don't
I'm
listen.
not shouting. I'm
They
not
don't know
shouting.
anything.
You're the one who
Yeah.
is shouting. Okay, let's talk in order. There's no locking up. There's no evidence. There's no credible evidence. You cannot follow one false news after another false news. This kind of questioning is propaganda. It's very rude.
What,
Oh,
Kai? To be
okay, Kai.
clear,
I apologize.
So rude?
yeah,
Rude is your argument? Yeah,
It
you're
is.
All
It
right.
is
you
rude.
maybe you
It
don't know
Okay.
how
is rude.
this
I
room
mean, all
works.
these
Kai, let's all calm
allegations
down. I
on China
apologize. My
to
apologies.
committed
My
genocide, I
apologies,
find that
Kai.
extremely rude. Where's the evidence
Well,
on
Okay,
we didn't
that?
say that you
my
did, Kai.
apologies.
Where's the
I'm
independent, verifiable evidence on that?
all right.
All right,
Kai,
we
I'm
have it.
apologizing to you. I'm apologizing
Good,
to you.
thank you.
I apologize. I apologize. Let's let Leon finish and then let's get back to the topic. Leon, can you answer my question, please?
Sure. I mean, now let me tell you how I understood from the article why they locked up
Mm-hmm.
the Uyghurs. I just give you
Okay.
some numbers, okay? Some example. On July 5th, 2009, there was a riot in the capital city of Urumqi. 197 people were hacked, beaten, or burned to death, and 1,721 were injured. That's what happened in Xinjiang,
Mm-hmm.
okay? On May
Okay.
22, 2014, two car bombings in the same city killed 43 people and wounded 94, okay? There
Okay.
were dozens of other attacks, okay? The extreme
Uh-huh.
violence was not just confined to Xinjiang, just be clear. In
Okay.
2013, 5 people died and 38 were injured in a suicide attack by 3 Uyghurs in Beijing, the capital of China. In 2014, a killing spree by 8 knife-wielding Uyghurs left 31 people dead and 141 wounded at the Kunming railway station. They're all facts. You can go to check the facts. Okay? And a 2016 study commissioned by the US government noted that from 2012 to 2014, domestic attacks in China apparently became more frequent, more geographically dispersed, and more discriminately targeted. US government did this study, okay? The perpetrator, in many cases, were radicalized members of a Uyghur ethnic group. That was the reason. Now let me ask you, look at since like Greg, you are so unhappy about this. Look at what the US government did to the Muslim. in the
Yeah,
United States.
it's called whataboutism, man. Like we're trying
No,
to
no,
get
no,
better.
no.
Are you?
Shut fuck up.
So,
Shut the
Wait, you
fuck up.
addressed me. You
no,
addressed me,
no,
No,
so
no,
I
no,
no,
won't
no,
shut
no,
no,
up.
no, no.
You
Wait, wait,
addressed
wait,
me,
no,
wait,
so I
wait,
won't
wait,
shut
no.
wait,
up.
wait.
You said what China
Leon,
did was wrong.
Leon.
Leon,
I'm
if
talking
Sorry.
about
everyone is
like, are we
addressing
talking
you
about
in a
China or are we talking
respectable
about the
fashion,
U.S.?
respect back in a
Sure,
Yeah,
sure,
respectable
sure,
fashion.
sure.
Answer
Okay.
yeah,
back
dude.
in
If
a
you want to
My
talk talk
bad,
with
my
me,
bad,
if you
my
want to
bad.
talk
One
like
second.
that to me, then come over
To
to my
just
house
on
and do it.
on Greg's point there. Two things can be wrong, right? Both can be wrong, right? So
Yeah,
it doesn't make one
Exactly.
like,
thing not less
yeah.
wrong. That's
That's
what
I
right.
don't
That's
think that the
right.
whataboutism
I
U.S.
is,
is
take it back,
perfect,
right?
Greg.
but we're
My
getting
So
better
apologize.
let's
at
My
go
being
back.
perfect.
apologize.
Let's discuss the issue on the ground.
I didn't say
Yeah.
you just think US did was right. My apologize. That was my bad. I shouldn't have control. I should have
Yeah.
control my
My
emotion
last, my
better.
last question, Leon. My last question, and then maybe Greg, you could get involved because I agree with you on
Sorry,
what you're
Greg. I
about to say, and I
apologize,
know
my brother.
exactly.
That was my bad. I
No, it's
shouldn't have
okay.
cursed you.
I'm all right. I actually I didn't
Greg, I'll
care at
ask a
all.
last
But
question.
it's nice to
I'll ask a
it's
last
nice to
question,
feign
brother.
like I'm hurt for a second to make the
No,
right
no, no,
things
no, no.
happen.
I know you're hurt. You're just a tough
Oh.
man. You're hurt.
Greg,
You have a
I'll
broken
ask a
heart.
last.
I was with
I'll ask.
Dr. Stacy. I know that.
If you
He's
even
faking
knew,
it.
if you even
Leon.
knew.
Greg, brother, I'll ask a last question,
Greg,
and then I'll hand over to you because I agree
so
with what you're
just
about to say. Leon, were these people given any form of due process or any form of legal proceedings after that to be released at this current point in time? My last question.
I don't know. I didn't know about that part. I think the government didn't do something the whole process properly. I think the government was scared to death. Let's just put it this way.
Oh,
The CCP was so
okay.
scared because the whole shit just happened so badly. I mean, it's like kind of two poisons, right? You take the least worst one,
But also,
right?
I mean, to back Leon a little bit, okay, because you guys are saying all this. I agree, right? The situation is really bad. But I've not seen any of your governments or your Twitter feeds ever mention this crisis. So is there like a hypocrisy here? Because
Of
you're arguing
course,
against
that's what I'm
no, because
saying.
you're basically now
No, no,
going
no,
to attack
Heyman,
it
Heyman,
publicly.
look up the Middle Eastern countries. Look up the Middle
No,
Eastern
they're not.
countries.
Like
Look
they're
up
making
a lot of
deals.
the
They're
Islamic
making deals
countries.
with China. They're making deals. Saudi made a major deal with China.
No, no,
So I'm
no.
just saying, like, there's a lot of hypocrisy too, right?
Hey man, hey
Especially
man,
I'll
hey
show
man.
you
I
some
think
of the
what
stuff
Faraz was.
offline. I'll show you some of the
I think
stuff
what
offline.
Faraz saying is like so
Um,
far. If you look at the Muslim, so quote unquote Muslim crisis in China, who are trashing China, criticizing China? All Western countries.
look
The
at some of
funny
the
thing is
stuff
that
that
the
Pakistan is
Muslim majority
posting, and I'll
countries.
show you some of the stuff myself.
Okay,
Greg, why
sure.
don't we go to you, brother? And I think instead of all of us jumping at Leon, which then incites him
I
no,
mean,
to,
exactly.
yeah,
Like I
like
change
think
his tone.
your Twitter feed should
I'm actually,
reflect your arguments here as well, right? So you're not
what?
actually you're having a hypocrisy
What?
here because
What
for business
are you
reasons you
talking
don't
about?
actually attack China,
What are you
but in
like?
fact,
I
Okay,
wasn't on Twitter
Heyman,
until I came on a
Heyman.
Clubhouse
no, I
15
I don't
days
understand.
have
I
all
ago,
the
understand,
maybe
time
a
in the
Faraz.
month
world.
ago.
I don't have all the time in the world to be on social media like you do, bro. I've got other things to do. So
Yet
yeah,
you
I'll
are.
tweet about this. I'll tweet about this, no problem. But I got to do it in between, like I don't know, like having sex with my amazing wife and my fucking helicopter and flamethrower and Duffy.org and all the other things that I've got to do. So don't take my Twitter. I don't give a shit about Twitter. I don't give a shit about Twitter. And so the thing is that what Leon is saying here is like I understand where he's coming from, but it's a propaganda war between two countries who want to win. And at the end of the day, I want the U.S. to win because the U.S. is nicer than China to people that are disadvantaged. And that's like those are the values that I grew up with. They're the ones that I believe in. And like Leon doesn't believe in this, near as I can tell, because like yeah, like I like free speech even for people that I don't like what they have to say, and so I'll defend that right to the death. And this is a war between two global superpowers, and anybody who sees it as a war between Leon and me is just ridiculously like 5-year-old interpretation of this thing.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
way,
Hey,
just
Leon.
as a closing thought, Leon can say anything that he wants to me. I do find him interesting. I do find China interesting. I hope that we can find a way for China and the US to actually work together, but we're so far away from it right now because we disagree on such basic principles that we need a divorce and see if we can become friends afterwards to take care of all of our children, which are the rest of the countries in the world. All the rest of you countries in the world, I'm sorry, but you're our children, and you're getting hurt in this nasty divorce process, and we
Dude,
need to
that's a
just
bit
cut it. And then
condescending though
we,
to say
yeah,
No, no,
interesting.
no.
absolutely
I
is
Dude,
disagree.
condescending.
I disagree. I think that this
It is
everyone, every
condescending.
other,
It's
every.
paternalistic
No, no, no,
and
Greg. This part I
maternalistic.
disagree. This
Yeah,
part
that's
disagree.
okay. You can also
Yeah, I
be wrong,
disagree.
Leon.
That
Yeah,
could be
it's
wrong.
fine.
That's just my
you
opinion. That's
too.
your
No, no,
opinion.
I
It's my
just mean like
opinion,
I'm
right?
allowing you to be wrong and still like you, which is
No,
what's
no.
happening
You
right
don't
now.
have a permission allow me me wrong. Who you think you are?
Yeah,
You're my brother. You're not
I
my
mean, I am,
parents.
I mean, I am
At
smarter than
most.
you.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than you.
How can you prove
Oh,
that? Not
you
because
know
you have
that.
more money,
Yeah,
you are
I mean, I've
smarter.
been more.
How do you
Yeah,
know?
I mean,
How do you
in the
know?
world stage, I have achieved more than you have, and so that's the only metric we have.
Well, you are older as
Yeah.
well. You're also born in a
How?
more
Wait,
privileged
I'm 35 years old.
location.
How old are you, Leon?
Okay, then I'm older. But
Yeah,
that just
exactly.
only mean
Shall
like
we?
Get to work.
you're
Shall,
born
shall
with
we
more
maybe not
money.
make?
Do
Shall
something
we
with your
maybe
life.
not make this as
Greg, you're born with
personal
more
Just do
money.
something with
as
Good
your
this
life,
luck with
son.
you.
is?
Sonny boy.
Greg Leon,
Go do something with your life,
Leon.
Leon.
Let me just step in here. Let's not make this personal because, look, I mean,
It's
I
not
come from the
personal.
UK, and
It's not.
before we went to war in the Middle East,
It's
I
not personal.
marched with 1 million people. I didn't agree with that, and I expressed my views there. I have concerns about the Middle East. I have some concerns about things that happen in China. I have concerns about things that happen in my own country. But it should be certainly within this forum that we can have a conversation. Let's not politicize it. Yes, there are definitely political agendas here, but
What does politicize
let's
mean,
just
Jonathan?
let's just have
What does
a
that
different
mean?
dialogue. Well, let's
What does it
acknowledge
mean?
that there are
Jonathan,
obviously
Jonathan,
things. Hold on, Greg.
What
Let's
does it
just
mean?
acknowledge that there are things that are going on
Jonathan, let me
in
add.
China that we don't agree with. We would like to have more visibility. I mean, there are UN reports going back from 2017 and reports from Amnesty International further.
We
But
should
then again, there
stop
are
giving
also
them money.
reports
Yeah.
about Guantanamo Bay. There are reports about the Middle East,
No
the
more
Emerald
money.
City as it
Daddy's
was,
cutting off the allowance.
Jonathan,
you
let
know.
me add to this. Greg, just 1 second.
Can I just can I say
Guys,
something to Jonathan's point? One thing, Jonathan, I appreciate what you're doing to kind of kind of be kind of liaise there. But here's the thing: Leon came in with the headline, right, on the China issue, and that's where the discussion started. So yes, there are issues going on in the rest of the world.
Well,
So in a sense,
Cal,
he wanted
I,
this discussion. So
so Cal, let me add
that's
to
what.
well,
Cal. Let me
can we
add to this.
go?
Leon,
Can I
Leon.
build on what Cal is saying here? To be very clear, the headline also directly calls out Americans, and so it is a fighting headline. It says Americans are dumb about something, and they're dumb about China. But I'm whip smart about China. I know everything that's going on in China. I worked with China for years. I know China, and I also still agree with the general sentiment that they're quote unquote not capitalist. Because they're not capitalist in the way that we mean the word capitalist, which means responsible capitalism, the way that Americans think about it, along with the Bill of Rights and human rights and everything else that we bundle
You
into it, along
sure,
with
Cool.
our
Greg?
Second
Are you
Amendment and
sure?
so on and so forth.
Are you sure?
That
You
is
sure? The
propaganda, Greg.
capitalists
That
in
is
the U.S. have a
propaganda.
human
Nope.
rights? Are you
Yeah.
That
insane?
propaganda
Are
is
you
not
just
The
agreeable
United
say
by
States
white
all of
is
leads the
us.
black
world in
or
human
I
black
don't
is
rights.
agree with
white?
that.
Come on,
The
Leon,
man.
United States
You can be
leads the
better
world
than
in human
this.
rights. It doesn't mean that we're perfect.
Kai,
No,
go.
you're not perfect. I mean, I don't care what.
It doesn't matter.
Kai, go ahead and make your.
Nobody's
Well,
perfect.
also, Greg, you're
Greg,
just
hold on.
wrong that Americans as a whole think of it like
Well,
that.
nice assertion there.
Hold on, Greg. Hold on.
Well, no, it's not an assertion; it's polling.
Yeah, it's an
If you
assertion.
look at polling, if it's
Oh, so
the
you can
younger
go pick
people
some
are,
polls
the
to
worse
support your point. Oh
they're.
yeah, you're not the first person to have done that. How boring. How boring. And
Kai,
how low-minded.
Kai, go ahead.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Kai,
You're
go ahead.
lowbrow.
Oh, this is a personal attack, Greg. You
No,
said you will
what the
never
fuck is wrong
personal
with
attack
you?
It's not a
anyone.
Stick to the
personal
facts,
attack.
man.
I've talked with this guy before. He
What do you mean?
basically
No, we
he's
said
been
very
DMing me like a
stable.
little boy.
I called
Yeah,
you.
I
I
like
called
I have
some curse
yeah.
word on you. I apologize. I want you
Yeah,
to apologize to this
I'm sorry,
person.
Joseph, that I'm not the father that you're
Not
looking
because
for.
you're rich, you can say whatever you want.
I'm
Get the
sorry,
hell
Leon,
out
that
of
I'm not the
here,
father that you're
man.
looking for, but I'm the father that you
No,
need.
you F off, okay, man?
No, I won't.
You are
Because I'm
nobody. I don't give
strong.
a damn.
Yeah, no,
What
I'm
do you
strong.
think you are?
Yeah, I'm
Right?
basically being your dad right now.
Get a. I promise my brothers I don't use a profanity anymore. That's why I
How
don't
did
want
that
to
work
say
out
that
for
on
you?
you. Didn't work well, but I'm learning, right?
No.
But Greg, if you want to have a civilized conversation with me, please drop this
I don't think
language.
I used any profanity
You
against you,
called
Leon.
someone low life.
Yeah,
What
I
does
think
that mean?
no, I said lowbrow. It means that
What
they
does
have
that
an
mean?
unsophisticated argument.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
I mean, I know
misheard
English
that.
is, yeah, I mean, like this is an English thing here, and I am in command of the English language in a way that most people are
So
not.
you are saying you are
And,
But here we
superior
go.
to us,
Greg, you're just
right?
distributing a ton of arrogancy there.
Yeah,
I don't think you have
absolutely.
the
I
right
am
to
arrogant
call
and I am
yourself
right,
anybody's
Kai.
dad. You're not. Your
I'm
intelligence
so
does not
awesome that
precede
I can
that. I
do
don't
this.
think
And
you're
so,
that
and America is
intelligent.
so awesome
And
that
the
we can do
statement
this
you're
too, and we're
saying
going to
about
keep doing
America
it
and
no
about
matter what
China
you
is
say.
totally
Yeah, it's arrogant,
anti-intelligent.
Kai.
Greg,
That's
I am
rubbish.
arrogant.
Okay?
I am arrogant. I am arrogant. I
You are
like to be
arrogant. And
arrogant.
stop that.
Yeah,
That's
I
not going to get
am.
you anywhere.
No, no, it
That
does.
is
It's
going
gotten
to
me
expose
everywhere.
your stupidity
Everything
here.
that I have in life is because I am arrogant.
Yeah, you are agreeing. Just because you think you're successful doesn't make you really successful. Just
What do you
because you
mean? I'm
think you're
happy.
smart doesn't really make you smart.
I'm
There are lots of
happy.
people smarter than you, okay?
Like,
I don't
it
think you're
doesn't
smarter
matter
than
what you
me,
think. I think
okay?
you're
I
wrong.
don't think you're
And
smarter
that
than me.
makes me
You
happy.
can't
The
provide
fact that
your,
you can
you
say that
can't
and
prove
it
that
does
you're smarter
nothing
than
to
me.
me, it makes me
You think
so
you can
happy.
overtalk me? And my English is just as
I
good as yours.
absolutely
And
can
what's wrong with you?
overtalk you
And I
anytime that
speak
I want
Chinese.
to.
Do you speak
You don't know
Chinese?
the rules
You
of
don't
the
speak
room.
Chinese. You don't know
Basically,
anything
my
about
life is
culture,
awesome.
and
I do
yet you
dope shit
comment
all the
about Chinese
time, and
culture.
there's nothing you
That
can
just
say, Kai,
shows
that will actually make
stupidity
me
Can
and
upset.
ignorance.
Yeah, I'm
All right?
arrogant. It's lovely to be arrogant and be
can
really
I
great at the same
can I
time.
It's
respond to
not
Greg really
lovely.
quick?
You think it's lovely.
It's
It's because you're
awesome. I
stupid and
love it.
arrogant.
Everybody in
Okay?
my life that
It's not.
knows me
It's not.
loves me
Your
for it.
life is
And I don't give one
you
single shit
you
what
Ah,
you
just
think,
I
exploding the
have
Elaine.
ugly side of
Not
your
even a
life.
little bit.
I just had a
And
great
the
Let's
idea.
reason
become
why
Wait, wait, wait.
foreign
we took
now.
you
I
here
just
Okay,
because I'm not
okay,
a
we
dumb
do
as you.
something.
stop,
Let's
stop.
become foreign
Hold
now.
on, hold on.
It's
Leon,
not
Leon,
working.
hold
No
on.
nutrition, just
Hold
Back
on,
to
average.
Leon.
Tyler. Back
Hold
to
on, Leon.
Tyler.
Hold on, Leon. I
Back
just
to
had a great idea. We're going to do a poll in the audience here.
Yes.
We're going to do a
Do
poll.
Sounds
it.
great. Finally,
Is
democracy.
this going to be who thinks Greg is
Yes,
smart?
that's
Who
the
thinks who? We're
democracy.
going to see who thinks Greg is smart and who thinks Greg is arrogant. So,
Yeah.
hands
Well,
down.
wait. Can't those
You
be the
can
same
raise
thing?
twice.
You,
Yes.
you,
No, no,
you,
no.
you,
Hold
you
You
on.
should
can
have
Who
a
raise.
can
third
be
thinks I'm
choice.
smart
both.
and who thinks Greg is
Who
smart?
think Greg
Hold
both
on.
smart and
Hold on.
arrogant? You
Yes.
should have a three choices.
You can
Both
vote.
smart.
Yes, you can be
Gentlemen,
both. Hold on.
gentlemen,
Twice.
I'm muting everybody who talks.
gentlemen.
By the way, anyone who talks gets muted. So everyone, put your hands down now. So we start at 0, please. And yes, you can be both. You can be smart and arrogant, of course. So
Got it.
hands down.
yeah. So hands down. Hands down.
Yeah, right. There's 10 people, so my apologies to Dagmar and Katerina and the 10 guys who have their hands up. Please put your hands down so we can do this poll. Okay, and hands down. I need everyone. Okay, we have to reset the hands down because people.
Yeah, reset already.
Yeah, could you? You did that already?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's reset.
somebody raised
It's
their hand.
fine.
Okay, good. So now raise your hand if you think Greg is smart. Raise your hands.
Do I get to like hype this a little bit, or do I have to be quiet?
You can tweet to all your friends to encourage them to vote for you.
Got it. All
I'm
right.
I'm keeping count of the right
I
numbers.
love
You
the
can trust
audience. The
me.
audience is amazing.
Yeah.
Greg.
Can we move to the audience so we
Best
can vote
looking
too?
audience.
Yeah,
Greg.
no swaying the jury, please. We're at 6.
If you
Oh, okay.
Oh,
want to
Sorry.
sorry.
vote, move
Okay.
yourself
I'm
to the
sorry,
I'm
but
not
you
even going
are
to
all
say what the
awesome.
number. We're not even going to say what the number is.
Keep saying nice things about the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cal and I
I
can
love
see the
them.
number,
I
but
mean,
we're
they're
not going to
Come,
say
Greg,
what the
sing us
number
a
is.
song.
Okay. Now hands down, please. And everyone hands down. We got the number. You saw the peak number, right, Cal?
I did. Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, good. So hands down, everybody.
Okay,
And
I'm going to
now,
reset it. Yeah,
yep,
reset it.
reset
Okay.
the hands. Yeah.
Okay, open now.
Okay, open, and it's and now raise your hands if Greg Duffy is arrogant.
Oh, Greg.
Oh my God, this is the highest
Oh my
number
god.
we've ever seen. Oh my God.
Your stats
Did
are
you
through
know
the
that I was
roof,
hoping that
Tyler.
the arrogant number would
Greg
be
can
higher
be
than
both
smart
smart
because
Well,
the
and
lady,
audience is a
arrogant.
bunch of idiots?
Arrogant and stupid.
yeah,
No. Give Greg a third choice:
yes.
arrogant and also smart.
Okay, no, we're
Sorry,
gonna
arrogant
do a
and
third one.
sorry.
Is he stupid? Okay, hang on.
Greg is what?
Hold on. We got the total. That was, by the way, I think we just figured out the limit of a hand raising possibility.
We broke. Did
We
we?
did
No,
break
we
the
didn't
hand
break the
raising
Okay,
limits.
button.
No.
you got a number? I'm going to,
Yeah, but
okay.
it's lit.
I
We
love
just
it.
figured out what the limit is. Actually, that's not a joke. So
Okay.
then, the third question is, if you could reset it, please, Cheryl.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay, reset.
Third question
Okay,
is:
open.
Is Greg Duffy stupid? Go ahead and raise your hands.
Oh my God, sorry, Greg.
Yeah, listen, like, my views are pretty complicated, so I do think that people, if you think I'm stupid, it's okay.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, it's a good,
It's an
I'll
No,
forgive
good to
you.
no,
flesh
I
that's
think
out
it,
that
not.
number.
No,
That's
they
a
have
good
to
No,
way to
go on
flesh
what
out
we
that
Greg, I
said
number.
don't think you're
today.
stupid.
What
I
we
don't think
said
you're
today.
stupid. What you said today was a little bit stupid.
Okay,
No,
so
that's
Maybe
not the
No,
topic.
maybe not
okay.
Leon,
stupid, but
please.
Statement.
Hold
silly.
on.
Silly
But
is
you're
the
not
word, not
God.
stupid.
Time
I
for the
want to know the
results.
number.
Silly. Greg
Hold
is
on.
silly,
Shh.
not stupid.
Okay, Cheryl. Here's the results. Cal, you want to read them out?
Yep.
Oh.
So
But just
Greg is
before you do, the first and the third were the same, were they not? Very close.
what?
Duffy.
No,
Duffy,
yeah. The numbers,
Greg,
yeah.
we
Go ahead
still
and
love you,
Yeah.
okay,
okay.
regardless.
Well,
So
you can compare the numbers if you want, because Tyler, you've got the desktop, so it might have a slight different
yeah, go ahead and show what
reading on
read
it.
what you
Yeah.
showed. Yeah.
So is Greg Smart 57, and I'd say I would make it 58, but he's 57.
Okay.
Second one is Greg Arrogant, 90. Is that what you got?
I had plus 10 on both of those for some reason, but go ahead.
Okay. And silly or whatever, it's 44.
I
Got
had
it. Stupid.
I
Oh,
had
that's not too bad.
That's a bias, though.
I
You
did
should
pretty
take that
good.
out.
I had 65,
Listen,
Not bad, not bad.
165.
this is very
Okay,
interesting
that's a
because
desktop thing. Yeah.
may I have a moment to comment on these numbers?
Sure.
Because first of all, thank you everybody who chose arrogant, because I do think it's one of my most favorite characteristics of myself. And second of all, the people who chose stupid, I also thank you because you have proven to me that even that I am not living in a bubble of only smart people like I normally do, and I'm actually accessing the lower half of the bell curve. So thank you very much for validating my platform. And then
That's your
third,
point.
for the
Go
Wow.
people who
ahead,
said
go
I was smart,
arrogant. Good job.
Can I?
for
Can
the
I?
people who
Yeah.
said I was smart, and lastly, I would like to thank you because a little bit of praise and polish, obsequious praise, does help the ego a little
Ego.
bit. It's doing very well, but I'll take it when you're all beautiful human beings. And by the way, you might actually be very smart too if you think that I'm smart. If you think I'm smart and arrogant, then I really love you because you understand
Greg,
that
I
arrogance
love your
is a great
pitch. I
thing.
love your pitch. That's why you are such a
Thank you.
successful
Smart and
businessman.
arrogant, Greg.
So I
Thank
think
you
the
That's where
for
I'm
the
sitting,
final
bud.
Okay,
question should be:
okay,
can he
Leon,
change?
we're gonna
Can he
Leon, should
improve?
we do this on you now? No.
thank you
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
good
sure,
spot,
sure. I don't
Greg.
care. So I want to beat Greg in terms of who have the thickest skin. I
No,
always
we're not
think I
doing
have
that.
the
We're
thickest
not doing
skin in
Well,
this
you
room.
didn't win that one, buddy, because it sounded like you were blown up over there a little bit. Are you okay? Do you still have all of your blood
I'm
vessels
okay. I'm
intact?
okay.
For Asian, he was balanced.
I think we've shown you're arrogant.
Yes,
Maybe you
I'm
should
pretty good.
quieten down a bit, Greg.
Who said that? Oh, they don't want to
Jonathan.
identify themselves because
No,
they're scared.
I'm Andrew. I'm speaking up
Oh,
here,
sorry,
Greg.
Andrew.
You
Where?
just heard
Andrew,
the
where?
vote, so maybe we could hear
Andrew.
from some other people about
Andrew.
tech news today.
Obsessed,
Andrew.
obsessed.
Andrew. Oh, wait. Yeah, I
Obsessed.
just gotta. Oh, yeah. Oh, right here. Oh, hello, Andrew Gall. Yes, at some point, I would be happy to take your advice seriously if you ever do anything that I care about, but I'm about 10 sentences into your bio and I just am bored as shit. But I'm looking forward to you accomplishing great things in your life, and I look forward to following you and taking your advice. But I have better people giving me advice in my life right now. But
See,
thank you.
the thing is, Greg, you can be smart and arrogant and willfully ignorant, and the third is the worst. I was quoting.
Yeah. So
How
are you
about
telling like your life story there,
let me talk,
like your
buddy.
bio,
Let me talk,
Joseph?
buddy.
Is there
So I
like, are
was
you smart,
quoting.
arrogant,
Oh,
and
Jesus
you
Christ.
did you also do this thing that what
No,
was
this is a
number 3
different person
again?
now, Greg.
Yeah, no, I know
Greg.
Joseph. It's
Yeah.
Joseph.
Yeah.
I've encountered
So
him before. He's a little troll. He
I'm
looks
not
like
a
Harry Potter.
no, Greg.
And so I'm kind of tired of talking with him, and so
Okay.
I'm going to do this until he
Thank
gets
you,
bored.
everybody, for joining us again. Tech news around the world, and
Thanks, Tyler.
a very wonderful.
Hey, thanks,
Tyler, you
Greg.
promised you're gonna go
Thanks,
like
Kyle.
a whatever
See you
vote for
guys.
me. I thought I
Bye,
gonna
guys.
figure
It
out
was
something
fun.
about me.
Thanks,
It was a
Greg,
pleasure.
for such a
Tomorrow.
good
Bye-bye.
spot.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
Joel.
Leon.
Thanks, Greg.
See you
Thanks for
tomorrow,
being a good
everybody.
sport with
guys.
us.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Greg.
There's
Thank you,
hope.
guys.
There's
Don't
hope for
check
the
my
Asian.
Twitter.
Thanks,
There's a lot of
Kyle.
fun.
Cool
Take
down.
care.
A lot of fun on my
Bye.
Twitter.
Thanks, Leon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
Love
Greg.
you. Love you,
Thank you,
buddy.
Greg, my brother.
Bye.
That's a lot of
Love you
I
guys
fun.
all.
knew there was a reason I stayed up until 1.
Hug it out. Hug it out.
Hug it out. Group hug, group
Yeah.
hug.
Brother from another mother.
There you go.
Still love each other.
Okay, you suck and